Good morning, afternoon, or evening, based on what time zone you're in. You're listening to the second episode of the Gritz Blitz podcast. I'm Owen Hillman alongside my brother and co host Grant Hillman. Grant, I know we don't usually talk about other sports, but a week ago the Atlanta Hawks had a major trade take place.
It's true. The Hawks traded Trey Young to the Wizards for McCollum and Corey Crispert, who I believe is not on the roster anymore.
Yeah, I think they got rid of McCollum, but it was on the same day as your birthday. Happy 20th birthday, Grant. How'd you feel about that? That must have been a pretty spoiled mood, huh?
Man, I would say I remember the day we drafted him, but we never drafted him. We drafted Luka instead. What could have been?
Yeah, what could have
So,
been
I mean, that
indeed.
sucked, but you know, enjoyed my birthday other than that.
Yep, but I think that the Hawks were trying to trade away Trey Young and get McCollum back because of getting cap space for another superstar. They waived CJ McCollum, like you said, so they cleared over $35 million in cap space. And I think they're going for somebody big. You want to know who it is?
I feel like I have a pretty good idea of who it is.
Yep. I think it's Anthony Davis. The Mavericks could have traded the talented big man to the Hawks, and Davis definitely could have signed off on it if he didn't injure his hand literally 2 days later. The big man suffered ligament damage to his left hand and could miss multiple months, quashing any rumors of Davis joining the Hawks. He didn't have a surgery on it, so there's a chance he could return for a playoff push, but I doubt we'll be able to grab him during this trade deadline. You see what it did there?
That's funny.
As for sports
Yeah,
that matter
I
more,
can't help but feel like Atlanta was so close to getting outlanded, but we somehow escaped that one. And I think I speak for many Hawks fans when I say I did not want AD to begin with for this exact reason.
yeah, that would have been a very interesting trade to take place. But as for sports that matter more, the Bulldogs added secondary help but lose almost their entire offensive line for a second consecutive year, potentially. Miami's quarterback Carson Beck continues to be the most hated quarterback in the college football playoff. Now the national championship. The Falcons rely on the best player in franchise history to guide them with relevance. And oh yeah, the wild card happened. A lot to discuss in college and professional football this week. Let's get into it. Starting with the 2025 Fiesta Bowl. This was one of the best college football playoff games since the 2022 Peach Bowl. Had four lead changes in the final 7 minutes of the game. Ole Miss continues to impress with Pete Golding, and Trinidad Chambliss backed up his impressive showing in the Super Bowl with flashes of brilliance in this game. But in the end, Miami and Carson Beck take down the Rebels, with Beck calling his own number with 24 seconds left in the end zone. The last play was a Hail Mary shot in the end zone that went off the hands of Ole Miss receiver DeJean Stribling. Grant, was that final play pass interference? Why or why not?
I don't think so. I am under the opinion that, especially in a Hail Mary type situation, it's supposed to be a long shot. You're not supposed to throw up a Hail Mary for a pass interference call to get you on the 1 yard line. Granted, this is college rules, so it's a little bit different. I think you let the players play. I think if that there's going to be mutual contact on a Hail Mary. Like there's no world where receiver and corner are getting untouched in the end zone on a Hail Mary. If the receiver's going to come down with that ball, he's getting his jersey absolutely thrown. And if that's the case, then that's a pass interference. But in the sense of pushing off of each other, I think that the receiver would have done the exact same thing given the situation. I think he would have pushed off of the corner if he was able to, and I think that if he caught it, the rest would have let that stand. So I don't see an issue with that not being a PI. It's just kind of one of those things that varies case to case. I'd love to know what you think about it.
Look, man, I played this game called Jump Ball for years. I don't know what it was called. Maybe Moss, maybe it was like Dodgeball, but essentially somebody would throw the ball all the way up in the air and millions of people would try catching it.
I remember that game. Yeah,
I would
I remember
never
that
have
game.
called pass interference on that. I would have never told him to restart the game if somebody was holding me down because that's what people did back in elementary school. That is exactly like how a Hail Mary defense is.
Yes.
Everybody is trying to wrestle towards the ball and
Yes.
people just happen to catch it. That's what a Hail Mary is.
It's
So
an accident. Yeah.
yeah, incidental
You push.
contact
That's the
happens
whole point.
all the time in Hail Mary situations. So no,
Yeah.
I do not think that was a pass interference, but it's still a rough end to Ole Miss's season. As for Miami, Carson Beck ended up winning the MVP of the game. Grant, did Carson Beck deserve to win MVP of that game, do you think?
I think he did. He actually outplayed Chambliss on the stat sheet, which was a surprise to me during the game and after the game. When I
Yeah.
was doing research on this episode, I was looking at the stat sheet and I was like, there is no possible way that Carson Beck outplayed Trinidad Chambliss, but he did. I mean, he had more touchdowns. I think he had three all-purpose touchdowns in the end
Yes,
because
he
he had a
did.
rushing one, didn't he?
Uh-huh.
Two passing and a rushing one, and I don't think he threw a pick, did he? Or maybe he threw
He threw
one.
one pick.
Yeah, but Trinidad Chambliss finished the day with about the same amount of yards. I think it was like around the 270 range
Yeah,
and one
268.
touchdown.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, hell of a game by Carson. I was not expecting that. I don't think anybody was. I don't think anybody's expecting this to be. I don't think anybody was expecting anything, but definitely not that.
Yeah.
So, sure, man. Tip my hat off to Carson Beck. It's a good
This
game.
had to be one of the most unexpected performances from Miami with Carson Beck. I thought for sure Mark
Yes.
Fletcher was going to run away with the award. Literally, he had 133 yards on like 6.0 yards per carry. But
That's
at the end of the
crazy.
day, Carson Beck ended up being the one who runs it in. I mean, who would have called that? That's crazy. But now with Trinidad Chambliss' career being over due to his eligibility being denied for his sixth and final season, where do you see him going in the draft?
Where do I see him going versus where do I think he should land?
There you go.
I still think that he should go fourth, fifth round, maybe fourth round. I think he's got so much talent. I think we talked about this in the last episode. I don't think there's a lot of quarterbacks that can make the throws in college that he was making against Georgia, and I think that shows to his ceiling a lot. It's actually a little bit reminiscent of Cam Ward to me, where it's a guy that kind of stepped into a position where he wasn't expecting to be as dominant or even to be close to a Heisman. But I fully think that if Trinidad Chambliss had another year in college, we would be seeing his name as a Heisman finalist. That being said, if I'm an NFL GM, you have not seen enough out of this guy. You cannot read into headlines. We have not seen enough out of this guy. Could he could his ceiling be a second round, first round quarterback? Definitely. I think he definitely could be a first round quarterback next year. That doesn't mean that his value is a first round pick. There's a huge difference between that. You shouldn't reach for a guy like that because he is a project quarterback as much as anybody's a project quarterback, actually more than most people. This guy has not played enough college football. He's not played enough football. He's closer to Anthony Richardson than he is Josh Allen.
Right.
We have not seen enough of this guy. And I don't think that you should let what you've seen sway your mind and say that this guy is ready for the NFL because he has a lot of things he needs to work on and a lot of things that he will work on. But if I'm an NFL GM, I'm not reaching. I'm letting him fall to the fourth round, maybe the fifth round.
Dude,
I mean, I would say steal him at the third round wouldn't be a bad pick, but I don't know. I don't see his value at a draft pick being a top, like second or first rounder.
I totally agree. I think Trinidad Chambliss would probably ranked about QB4 on my draft board, except for one
Hmm.
thing. I think this QB class is very weak, and I think there are some teams that might be desperate to draft a QB.
Yeah,
I don't know if Trinidad Chambliss is going to go to those teams, but I have him going to the second round. I know it sounds
interesting.
crazy, but I
Interesting.
think that some team like the Eagles could potentially take him as a project QB. Like the Jalen Hurts pick kind of came out of nowhere in
Yeah,
2020. And I could see Howie Roseman doing something very similar with Trinidad Chambliss. I don't know if there's any sort of connection with that, but Trinidad Chambliss being a project behind Jalen Hurts, I it it's a really
it could be
big boom or
dangerous.
bust pick.
Yeah,
But Trinidad Chambliss ends up booming, then Howie Roseman is going to look like a genius again. But he
yeah,
needs to get a project quarterback
he does.
behind Jalen Hurts, and I think
Yeah,
he could take that second or maybe even third round.
I just don't see Chambliss having the value of that pick, if that makes sense. It's
Agreed.
not that I don't think that his ceiling is a first or second rounder. It's that I don't see him being worth that.
Agreed. If he was drafted a second round, I would give it an F at that point.
Yes, agreed.
It's
You
not a
can let
good
him
pick.
fall. You can
Yeah,
let him fall. He might pan out and be fantastic, but that does not make him a steal, you know? It's like if Daniel Jones ended up, well, I guess he kind of did, but if Daniel Jones ended up being a Pro Bowler, you would still say, like, it's not that you hit on the pick, it's that you wasted the value of the pick. You could have traded down and gotten this guy still.
absolutely. He was projected
Got
to go
this
in the
guy,
second
sorry.
round of the draft by some pundits, and Josh Allen was
Right.
right there for the taking too. But
Right.
I
Yeah.
think the desperation of quarterbacks always seems to come up during this draft.
Oh yeah.
We'll see where Trinidad Chambliss lands, but we'll get closer to that when we talk about draft takes. Now, with Miami and the Natty, who do you think is the most upset about it? Notre Dame, Georgia, BYU, Duke, any other program, who do you think's the most upset?
I'd have to say Notre Dame. After really evaluating the season, especially the playoffs, Notre Dame had a legitimate shot for winning the national championship this year. Again, do I feel bad for them? Not in a million years. There's not a single thing that could happen at Notre Dame that make me feel bad for them. I hate to say
Right.
it, but it's true. There is nothing they could do
You
to
don't
make
have
me
to
feel
hate to
bad for
say
them.
it.
Yeah. But I think that that was a team that was fully capable of making a run this year, especially after seeing what Miami did this year. Notre Dame 100% could be in this, could still be playing football right now. So I would say them, and I feel like they're upset about anything. So why not be upset about this?
CJ Carr is a stud, and Jeremiah
Yeah.
Love deserved to be in playoff football. It's a shame that such a great talent is not going to be there, but I'm going to make a case for Georgia. And I don't think Georgia's mad that they got screwed. I think they're mad that their quarterback Carson Beck, their former quarterback, couldn't do what Gunnar Stockton did, and that is beat Ole Miss. Gunnar Stockton beat Ole Miss in the regular season, but he didn't do it when it mattered. And Carson Beck was able to learn from his defeat against Ole Miss in 2024 during the regular season,
Oh
and was
yeah.
able to beat Ole Miss with his new team. So Georgia, I think, should be very upset about Miami waking the Natty with their former quarterback that ditched him.
I would agree with you, but Carson Beck's inconsistencies have, it sounds so dumb, but I honestly feel like if Carson Beck was on Georgia, I don't think that they would still be playing football right now either. I think that
Right.
Georgia still 100% had a better shot with Gunnar Stockton. I think that Carson or Miami's defense is just phenomenal. I don't even know, man. You could wrap it up to a string of luck, but Miami's there, Georgia's not, and I still don't watch Carson Beck and think, man, what we could have had. I think through adversity, I guess.
No,
Through
I
adversity,
totally
he's
get
still
it.
here. You know?
Yeah. And it's not even about Carson Beck. It's just not even his talent. It's just the fact that he's there and Georgia's not.
Yeah.
And that he went to Miami and somehow they're in the national championship.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, on
It's
the other side,
yeah.
the Peach Bowl was expected to be another good game, but the Indiana Hoosiers made sure that it wasn't. They demolished the Oregon Ducks 56 to 22, making it look like that the Ducks did not belong in the college football playoff. Oregon quarterback Dante Moore started the day with the pick six and didn't get much better from there, while Fernando Mendoza threw more touchdowns than incompletions. 5 touchdowns and just 3 incompletions the entire game. Indiana is still undefeated heading into the national championship. So does this show that Dan Lanning is officially not a big game coach?
Yeah, I guess so. Um, I don't want to assess this as a playoff problem. I'll start with the regular season. In regards to the regular season, yes. Beating Penn State once a year, but losing to Ohio State or losing to Indiana now, which seems to be their yearly thing, is not good enough. I'm sorry. Uh, okay, I'm sorry. Maybe that's a little harsh to say. I think the issue rather is that they play absolutely nobody else.
Right.
And you kind of have to chalk it up to that. They play nobody. They play it's everybody in the Big Ten. It's so frustrating. They play 2 to 3 good teams a year, tops. And this year, or last year and this year, Oregon now has to cope with the fact that Indiana is going to be one of those games too.
Right.
But when it comes to the playoffs, I also want to say yes. But I will also give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they very well might have played back-to-back national championships in the playoffs and lost to them. Because last year they lost to Ohio State, as we remember, and this year they got absolutely wiped by Indiana. And I think everybody, all of America, is taking Indiana to win this thing in the national championship, which actually makes me more worried for Indiana than happy.
Yeah, Oregon though, I do look at those 2 losses, and I also look at the loss against Washington in the Pac-12 to make the playoffs, and I do worry about Dan Lanning in these kind of games.
Yeah,
He has not shown me that he can win these sort of big games in the season. They had some sort of you and I talked about it. They had some sort of Penn State-esque schedule heading to the playoff. They got to beat JMU, and then they won against the Big 12 champion Texas Tech, who that's not as good as the Big 10, and
yeah,
then they get walloped by Indiana. I don't see this team, unless things change drastically. I don't know if this team's going to win a championship in the Dan Lanning era. We will see, but it looks like Indiana and Ohio State are the 2 runaway favorites in the Big Ten, and it's just those two. And Oregon is in their other tier, like kind of like Tennessee is for the SEC. It's
yeah.
just
That's a good
not
way of putting it.
it's just not like I don't know if Dan Lanning can get over the hump, and that is my biggest worry. Now, I did hear early on, and this is something that I didn't put in the document, but I heard that Joe Klatt said that Kirk Cinetti would be the best head coach in college football if he were to win the national championship. Do you agree with that?
Dude, hell no. No shot. I'm sorry. Does Chris Ignetti have the ability to be the best coach of all time? Yes. So do I. So do you. Like, it's not really saying anything. But
His biggest
are we
argument.
seriously going to say that Kurt Signetti is going to be the greatest coach of all time when he's only had 2 years of playoff teams? And, one of them could be a national championship. And don't get me wrong, the things that Kurt Signetti are doing, I honestly don't know if there's that many other coaches in the history of coaching that could do that. There are, but who knows? There's a short list of guys you could take an Indiana team with no 5 stars. Like, what is it, 3, 4 stars they've got?
Yeah, they were ranked the 46th and 36th ranked classes according to 247 Sports in the entire nation.
Yeah. And you can't chalk it up to anything but coaching
Yeah.
because this dude brings in the entire JMU staff, which at that point, I would make the argument that JMU was better than Indiana. Maybe it's not even an argument. Maybe it's true. Maybe JMU was legitimately better than Indiana at that point. I don't know. I do know that Indiana essentially traded off years of losing to Purdue in their little bowl, and that's really not a fun, game to lose every other year. The point is, I think the things he's doing are unheard of. That being said, you have to win 5 national championships and have 2 in a row for it to start being a question. And until we see that, until he hasn't even won the national championship yet. Why are we talking about him being the greatest coach in all of
Not of
college
all
sports?
time. Of the greatest coach right now. Like
Still,
he'd be number one and the greatest coach like out of active coaches.
Kirby Smart won back-to-back national championships, and although Georgia has a fantastic recruitment, when you look at the guy he replaced and the things that he was able to do after replacing him, he's taken Georgia to heights that were unheard of. And back-to-back national championships does not happen to any other team besides Alabama. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, unless he retires tomorrow, no, no way.
I agree. Kirby's impact at Georgia is just too special for him not to be the number one coach in the league. I get that Georgia's always had bigger recruiting classes than Indiana. And Georgia is a victim of the college football playoff. They haven't made the quarterfinal since 2022 when they won the national championship. But Kirby Smart's national championship back to back, we might never see that again. Until
No.
Netti wins back to back national championships, it's got to be Kirby Smart hands down. Glad you and I are on the same page about that one.
Yeah,
But it was just something interesting that I found. But speaking of other
I did
things
see that
interesting,
also.
it is confirmed by Adam Schefter that Dante Moore is staying with the Oregon Ducks. Is next year championship or bust? Is next year the year for the Oregon Ducks to win the national championship?
It very well could be championship or bust for them. But in this scope of college football, there shouldn't even be a ring or bust anymore because for all we know, Purdue could make it. For all we know, Wake Forest could pop out of nowhere and be insane. Like, there's no, obviously those are exaggerations. The things that like Kurt Cignetti and Indiana are doing are not coincidences. But my point is, maybe it's their year, but that doesn't mean that I'm high on them winning it. Let me just say that.
Hmm, I would agree with that too. I think that Ohio State is going to be better next year. They lost a lot of talent this past year in the draft, and I would predict them to potentially win the Big Ten.
Yeah,
Not even
fair.
including Indiana in that because Indiana is a transfer portal QB, and that could still go very well for Indy, just like how Kurt Cignetti leads the team. But I think that next year Dan Lanning has to prove something with Oregon. I
Agreed.
think next year Dan Lanning has to make another deep run, and I think he has to at least make the championship because
This is definitely his Ryan Day national championship. Was that 2024?
yeah, it was last year Ryan Day won the
Yeah.
national championship, but Dan
This is
Lanning has
his
got
Ryan
to
Day
get the
24
monkey off
season.
his back.
Yes, agreed.
And on the other side of the ball, let me put it simply: is there any way to stop Indiana?
Not in a million years.
Mm-mm.
That team is. We need to talk about. I'm not saying that they are, but we need to talk about how they rank within the best college teams of all time because they are certainly seeming like they're up there.
Yep,
That defense is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. The My favorite thing about watching that Oregon Indiana game was the stunts that were happening on the D line for pass rush were beautiful. It felt like they were always rushing six, like five minimum, and they were rarely bringing more than four down because of just the beautiful pass rushing stunts we were seeing. And that defense is phenomenal. That defense could very well outscore most of the teams in the playoff this year, just themselves. And Fernando Mendoza is so like efficient and so accurate that I don't know. This team doesn't make a lot of mistakes. They really don't.
he's locked
They're
in.
seldomly in close games, which is saying something.
Yeah, Fernando Mendoza seems locked in right now. He is playing at a level that he's guaranteed the first overall pick, I think. And I'm so
Yeah,
glad
I
that he
agree.
won the Heisman. But yeah,
I agree with
there's
you on that.
there's just no way to stop Indiana. You know, Indiana has the second best single season point differential out of any team in history, behind the Florida State Seminoles in 2013.
Yep, the 2013 Seminoles.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
this
no, it's
looks like some
crazy.
historic stuff from Indiana. But
Yeah,
now
it's
the
phenomenal.
Hoosiers and Hurricanes meet up in the national championship, just like everybody predicted at the beginning. This game will be on Martin Luther King Day, January 19th at Hard Rock Stadium, where the Hurricanes get to play at their home stadium for the national championship. Does it say anything about the college football playoff structure that Indiana is the only team to play in their conference championship and have a shot at the national championship?
No, not really, because to me, the dominance that Indiana is showing, regardless of the time they've had off, is very showing of how good that coaching staff is.
Right,
So to me, it shouldn't matter whether or not you win your conference, shouldn't matter whether or not you get your whatever weeks off. The point is, Indiana walked into was it yeah, the Rose Bowl. They walked into the Rose Bowl against Alabama, and everybody left the field knowing that there was not a doubt that Indiana was the better team on that football field on
right,
every side of the ball. That shows something. That shows that, and we know this. That it's not that they're quote unquote the better talented team. They have a worse recruiting class than almost every single other team in the playoffs, minus like JMU and Tulane probably. But they go out there and they completely dominate every single opponent they're against, regardless of how much time they've had off or who their opponent is. Alabama could have very well walked in there and stunned them, but Indiana didn't let it happen. And to me, that is a coaching thing. That is a mindset more than anything. That is uh, I almost want to say a confidence and a lack thereof,
mm,
in a sense. It,
just
it's they're
poise.
playing four quarters of football without a doubt, and they know they have to work for it, but they know they're there for a reason. And to me, that shows that it shouldn't matter how much time you get off. It's all in the coaching.
Absolutely. Indiana just seems to have be outcoaching all of their opponents right now. But I think that in general, I think that winning the conference championship is becoming less and less worth it. Outside of like the SEC and the Big Ten, there's not really a strong. You can make the argument that the SEC and the Big Ten are the two biggest conferences, like, and no one else really. I mean, the
Yeah,
ACC, their conference champion isn't even in the playoffs right now. It was such a messy situation. And the Big 12, Texas Tech was a nice story. They made it. They made a bye week, but then they end up getting walled by Oregon. The at-large teams, they're all probably better than the Big 12. And then Georgia suffered
yeah,
many injuries, and they looked flawed all year. And they lost against Ole Miss. So no, I
yeah.
don't think it says a lot that Indiana is that only team because that's the situation that they're in. And then last year they had a situation where all conference champions got a first round bye, but they fixed that this year. And I think that
Yeah.
it's going to continue to level out to where the most deserving teams make the college football
And we're
championship.
certainly getting closer. I think this was the first year we've had under the new format where they got it right given the guidelines, if that makes sense.
Agreed.
You know,
Outside
you
of
can
maybe that
argue,
Miami Notre Dame thing, but I don't know.
but
It
I would
was
argue that that was correct. I think
yeah,
that Notre Dame should have never been ranked higher than Miami,
right.
but there's no they've got the same record. Miami's played better opponents and beat Notre Dame. Throw them in.
Yeah, I
Like, who
agree with
cares
that
about the eye test?
100%. But what does it say
So
about the parity of college football? And neither one of these teams were championship contenders before 2023. Both of them were 7-6 in 2023, and now they're facing each other in the national championship. What does it say?
I think you and I are both going to agree on this. We're approaching a new era of college football, a new era of college football that we have no idea what's going to happen.
Hmm.
The one thing that I am confident in is the dominance that we understand as dominance in college football will no longer exist.
Right. I totally agree. I think the transfer portal is going to make it to where teams can't stack up talent anymore. That's already the case with Alabama and Georgia. You see
Yeah,
that their most of their very highly recruited classes are all entering the transfer portal. I mean, Georgia just lost Dominic Kelly, who was literally reclassified from 2026 to the 2025 class, and now he's transferring just as a freshman.
yeah,
Georgia can't stack up this talent anymore, and neither can Alabama. No team can just keep all these players, all these guys, because the transfer portal is making it to where players could go to any school, honestly. And I think that that's a good thing for college football. I think that the
I
parity in
agree.
college football is becoming a much bigger deal, and that
I
is what the
agree.
new era of college football brings.
And the thing is, I think everybody can agree that big stage, big game, when it matters, you'd rather be at a college football game than an NFL game.
Agreed.
I mean, the atmosphere is really what I'm talking about. The atmosphere of a big college football game is so important. And we're getting closer to that atmosphere being uh, more important and the games being more important. Because I think we can all agree that it's kind of boring to watch your team play when you know that if they lose, it's essentially like you can write it, the season's over. That is frustrating because every game is like less of excitement and more stressful because you're playing not to lose instead of playing to win. And I think I can speak as a Georgia fan. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of us losing once to Alabama in the SEC championship and missing the playoffs in a four-team playoff. I'd much rather us lose one or two games, maybe three games, and squeeze into the playoffs where everybody in the playoffs has two losses, maybe one loss. That's to me much more exciting because then when you have, I mean, think about how many good games there were for Georgia this year. Think about how many games there were that were legitimately so exciting to watch from the start to the end. The Tennessee game, the
Yeah.
Texas game, the Alabama game, the Ole Miss game. All these games were like so much fun to watch. They were
Auburn.
so exciting, and I'm happy that Georgia won all of them. But I also like the idea that Georgia doesn't have to win all of them, and we're still looking at a postseason.
Agreed. Georgia had lost two games in 2024, and they still ended up making the playoffs. Granted, they did win the SEC title, but Georgia had a two-loss season. Usually would not lead to a playoff, but in this new era, it's back. But on to the
Yeah.
national championship game. Indiana seems like the runaway favorite, but is there anything that Miami does that's better than Indiana?
This sounds so dumb and arbitrary, but it's the only thing I could really think of is embracing the spotlight. Miami seems to love this kind of story that everybody's written, like keeps writing about them. And I think that that's playing into the story and playing into what they're doing right now. They've seemed to fight through adversity. They've faced more adversity than this Indiana team has, without a doubt. And they've continued to fight through it. They are a fun team to watch because they keep punching through and they love the headlines. I'm sure Carson Beck loves the idea that everybody's watching him expecting him to suck and he does kind of suck, but he's over here standing in the national championship. Like who else? So I think that does kind of play into this. I think this reminds me a lot of the wild card Giants against the undefeated Patriots. That's what this feels like to me. Like this is a team that's embracing that spotlight, embracing that underdog versus this Indiana team that feels like they show no emotion.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Tom Brady and those Patriots. Just it's business and business only. They go out there, they fight, they go home. Bill Belichick, same thing as Kurt Signetti, doesn't crack a smile all game. Tom Brady's kind of similar to Mendoza in the sense of where they're very much business. Don't have a lot of ego when it comes to at least their interviews and stuff and how they see him on the field. So that's what I'd have to say is just embracing that spotlight.
Yeah, I think that Miami has really had a chip on their shoulder this whole playoff team. People are saying that they don't deserve to they don't belong in the playoffs. Notre Dame should have been there. Notre Dame resting their starters with the bowl game. That was just a whole thing on itself. Miami is proving everybody wrong and making it. I
Yeah.
think that on the field though, I think that their pass rush is actually much better than Indiana's. That pass rush against the offensive line is going to be a sight to watch. That
Oh
is going
yeah.
to be really cool to watch. Miami has the 13th ranked team in terms of sack percentage with 8.64 times getting to the quarterback. Indiana has just an 8.42 sack percentage. And I think that Miami, with Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor doing stuff towards Fernando Mendoza, I think that he's going to have to really improvise. And also, not to mention, Corey Heatherman worked with Kurt Cinetti when they were both at JMU. So Corey Heatherman went to Minnesota right afterward, then got hired as Miami's defensive coordinator. And that might be the best hire that anybody has made at the coordinator position. He might win the Broyles Award. I would
Yeah.
vote for him
Very well
personally.
could.
But getting into that, who is the X factor for Indiana in this game and for Miami?
For me, Indiana's X factor has got to be that defense, specifically scoring on defense and the run game. Like I said last week, Indiana has only two games where they've rushed for, I want to say it was, I can't remember off the top of my head what the exact stat was, but they've only had two games where they have not rushed for a lot of yards. And both of those games were Penn State, and the other game was
Ohio State,
Ohio State. Thank you. Thank you.
the Natty? Yeah.
Yes. And to me, that shows that Indiana does kind of depend on this run game, as any team does. So it's going to be important to see if Miami can stop that. I don't think that will be enough in this case because if Indiana is able to profit off of Carson Beck turnovers or Fletcher turnovers, whoever ends up turning the ball over, if Indiana is able to profit off of that on defense, which could 100% happen, this team could 100% score once or twice on defense. As for Miami, I think that their X factor is the ability to win the turnover game. Like I also said last week, Miami in their ranked games, they have won the turnover game in all of the games that they have won and lost the turnover game in all the games that they've lost when it comes to ranked opponents. Granted, there's some ties in there, but we're going to ignore that. The point is, Miami's ability to win the turnover game is going to be key here because this Miami offense, I'm not sure is going to be able to run the ball up the field as efficiently as Indiana's is. I think they're going to take a lot more time off the clock, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. But if you're punching up because you're down two scores from a turnover, I'm not 100% sure that that Miami team can get the ball moving as efficiently as Indiana does. Indiana has a lot of safety with these kind of things. They have a lot of insurance with a quarterback who can get the ball out as quickly as possible. They've got a lethal run game. Not only that, but they have the ability to send the ball down the field. Mendoza's very good at making his quick short passes, but he also has a great arm and is able to put balls very efficiently for his receivers, like we saw in that Oregon game. There was one throw I saw there. It was a touchdown pass that was like a just a beautiful back shoulder pass. I think it was to his tight end. Where I mean, you could not have put the ball any better. But that's what Mendoza does best, is finding the best spot for the ball. So this Indiana offense is not one-dimensional by any means. They have a lot of insurance, and I don't think that Miami does that. But if Miami can win the turnover game, we are looking at a game that they could run away with in the same way that they ran away with the Ole Miss game, or actually better, the was it Ohio State they played before? The Ohio State game, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see, but I really still think that Indiana is going to pull away with this one.
Yeah. I think Indiana's defense is to be feared in their running game. There are two running backs in the backfield that have nearly 800 yards. Kalen Black has 798 rushing yards, and Hemby has 918. So that
Jeez.
two-headed monster is to be feared. But I'm gonna choose Charlie Becker as Indiana's X factor, just a specific player because Charlie Becker he's been on such a hot streak. He only has about 515 yards throughout the whole season, but he's caught two touchdowns in the college ball playoff so far. And against Ohio State, he had 126 yards on just six receptions. He's been on a tear recently, and I think that he's going to be a big part of Indiana's offense if they can't seem to run the ball. And Fernando Mendoza is able to throw the ball deep, then I think Becker is going to be able to have a big game. But for Miami, I'm actually going to change my mind. I think that pass rush is going to be very important to Miami winning this game because if the pass rush isn't going, The secondary gets gashed by Indiana. We saw it happen against Ohio State a couple of times where one-on-one matchups did not favor them, especially against Jeremiah Smith. And Indiana has a sneaky good group of wide receivers. As I mentioned, Becker, but Omar Cooper's very good. So is Elijah Surratt. That guy catches everything. I think that it's
Yeah.
going to be a very intriguing matchup. But I want to see this Miami pass rush has to win them the game on defense. But speaking of that, score predictions. What do you got?
I've got 32 to 20, Indiana taking this one home, but I do think the score is going to be a little bit misleading. I think that the majority of Miami's 20 points are going to come in garbage time. I think that Indiana is going to take complete control of this game. I think that we're going to see a much different Carson Beck than we've seen in the last few games, or maybe not, depending on which game we're talking about. And I think that this Indiana team is going to really profit off of the mistakes that Miami makes.
Yeah, I agree. I think Miami's miracle run might be over, and I'm going to go 20-13. I think it's going to be a bit close, but unfortunately, Miami's just not going to be able to capitalize on offense because Indiana's run defense is so good. Mark Fletcher is not going to be able to get many yards, and at that point, they just have to completely rely on Carson Beck, who, again, I'm glad they won MVP last semester. I'm glad they won MVP last game, but he just I don't think he could carry the offense on his own. So I think Carson Beck might turn the ball over a couple times, and as a result, Indiana wins this one 20-13. Meanwhile, the rest of the college football world is burning down with the transfer portal. Players are committing to schools, then flipping their commitment. Contracts are being breached, and it feels like absolute mayhem. This is just, it's wild. The Bulldogs are trying to get through it right now. They're trying to get their sixth straight SEC championship berth, which would set a record. That doesn't mean they haven't lost some key pieces. They've lost a couple of the pieces, especially on the defensive side. Grant, what has been their biggest loss in the transfer portal?
For me, I'd say, I mean, I really want to talk about the O-line. Bo Hewley leaving is definitely a big deal. We're starting to really thin out on the O-line, which is a problem.
Agreed.
But past that, I would say defensive back Jonah Aguero going to Ole Miss. That guy has been on an absolute tear. He's had 39 tackles this year with an interception. You hate to see a guy like that leave. So, I have to say that.
Agreed. Aguero is a big part of the Georgia defense, even if Georgia has a lot of secondary help, which we will get to in a bit. But
Yes, we
Jonah
will.
Aguero leaving is a big sting. He was a doggone dog. But Bo Hewley, I think, is the biggest one for Georgia because Hewley was expected to be the right tackle that will emerge when Ernest Green leaves and when Moeller Freely commits to the draft, which he already did. But now that Bo Hewley transferred to Colorado, Georgia, I don't know what Georgia does at the right tackle spot. They might have to start a
Yeah,
freshman or a sophomore that isn't as ready. And you have to hope that Juan Gaston has a better season than he did last year. He was a
yeah.
big letdown for Georgia. But Bo Hewley is a big loss in that team. Meanwhile, let's look at the positive. Georgia got a ton of help in the secondary, and they also got a good linebacker and a good wide receiver from the transfer portal. Grant, which piece are you most excited about for next season?
I will start by saying I am excited about Khalil Burns coming from Clemson. Safety, in case you guys aren't aware. There's not a lot to not be excited about with him. There's a lot to be excited about. But for me, coming from ECU, Jamarly Riddle, he had a phenomenal season last year with ECU. It really could not be understated. This dude had 38 tackles and 3 interceptions on the season. I would love to see a guy like that who starting, from a group of five school, transfer into Georgia, and I'm sure he's just absolutely ready to get some play time at a Power Four school. I would love to see what he does in this Georgia secondary.
Yeah, Jamarly Riddle was an All ACC member last year. Very high risk, high reward. You saw what happened with Georgia Elam Odozie. He was a big transfer from Army, and he ended up not panning out. But I think Jamarly Riddle Grant has the size. I think he could absolutely figure it out. But my pick is going to be Amaris Williams. Georgia's biggest weakness last year, I argue, was the pass rush. It
Yeah,
took a lot of time to get going. By the time that Gabe Harris arrived, Georgia had 12 sacks in their last 5 games. But then the biggest issue came up again when Gabe Harris got injured. And why do I keep repeating Gabe Harris? Amaris Williams has a very similar body type to Gabe Harris. He's about the same amount of weight, same height, and Amaris Williams kind of rushes the same way. And Auburn's defense was actually pretty strong last year. They were ranked
they were.
32nd in points allowed per game. And Amaris Williams, the former five-star, I think he went to the exact right place to get developed as a premier pass rusher. I think Amaris Williams, if he pans out, could be a home run for Georgia and could get them some much-needed pass rushing help, which they desperately do need. I know I said that twice, but I can't emphasize it enough. Georgia is also losing several players via the 2026 NFL draft. Do any of these players stand out to you as potential first round picks? Which one stings the most to lose?
I mean, I think I'd be lying if I said it wasn't CJ Allen to me.
Of course.
Definitely has the potential to be a high first round pick, possibly even the first linebacker taken into this upcoming draft, although we'll have to see. So yeah, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that he could definitely be a first round pick, and that one stings.
Yeah, absolutely. Allen was a big part of Georgia's defense. Unfortunately, he had a bit of a rough game against Ole Miss, but I think Allen is for sure going to be a first round pick. But I'd argue that Monroe Freeling could also be a first round pick. He wouldn't sting the most to lose, but he is a junior, and I wish he would have stayed another year because Monroe Freeling, he definitely has the size and he has the speed and he has the highlights on tape to really get draft analysts are going to love Monroe Freeling, and I think that that is going to really juice up his stock. I think he's going to have a good combine, maybe a good Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl, and Freeling could sneak up to the first round. We'll definitely see. Zachariah Branch is also a big loss too on that wide
Yes,
receiver core. They're losing a
definitely.
lot of players in that regard. But overall, which position group was left the weakest after the transfer portal and draft declarations?
I mean, we both know the answer to this one. We can skip to this
Yeah.
one. It's going to be the offensive line.
Yep.
It's absolutely decimated this year.
Yeah, it's brutal. And there's still more left, too. Drew Bobo and Ernest Green still have yet
Yep.
to make their decisions, but we're losing Micah Morris, losing Monroe Freeling and Bo Hewley. That's almost an entire line completely changed. The only real returning starters from last year were Juan Gaston and Malachi Tolliver. I might be forgetting a guy, but oh, and Daniel Calhoun. But
Yeah.
Georgia is going to have to really get a big season from Calhoun and from Tolliver, who
Yeah.
might have
And
to be a starting center.
I've heard from some I had a buddy who played with Calhoun at IMG, and he told me something really insightful about Calhoun. He said that Calhoun was obviously he has the size and unlimited potential with the size, but with that, he says that he's lacking a lot of technique that a lot of those bigger guys have. And he was telling me he wouldn't expect to see him starting a lot of snaps at Georgia. So I really do hope that that's not true, but we're gonna have to see about that.
Didn't you play against Daniel Calhoun at one point?
I also did play against Daniel Calhoun, and I he might have given it to me a few times. I might have been eating turf by the end of the game, but he was
You were
also triple
braver
my
than I.
size.
You were braver than
Yeah.
I, man. But going back to Georgia, what groups did Georgia address the most in the transfer portal?
Uh, we could definitely, I would say safety. I mean, all the secondary, but specifically safety, bringing in Khalil Barnes and bringing in Jamarly Riddle out of ECU is definitely going to be a lot of depth for this secondary at safety. So,
Yeah, I really like the Braden Conley pick too, although I think he's going to be more of depth. I think that this entire secondary class just kind of proved how much last year's secondary class did not really pan out, and now all those players are in the portal too. But
yeah,
Georgia really overhauling their secondary with that. Is there a sort of position that you think Georgia should and maybe could address a little more as the transfer portal comes to a close Thursday and
I
Friday?
mean, we both know the answer to this. Offensive
Yeah.
line, definitely. Definitely offensive line. Now for you, what underclassmen are the most exciting for you coming into this next season?
I actually am really excited about Talon Taylor. I Everyone's going to say Elijah Griffin, and he's going to be a stud next year. But I think that Talon Taylor is going to be put into a much bigger role next year with the lack of wide receivers that Georgia's gotten and the loss of Zachariah Branch, Colby Young, and Noah Thomas. I think Talon Taylor is going to be asked to play a lot, and he did suffer some concentration drops last year, but he already has the speed and the agility to be a good wide receiver. He just needs to be able to put it all together, and I think more reps in bigger games is going to help him a lot. But overall,
Definitely.
would you say that Georgia got better or worse through this entire process?
Definitely worse. There's no
Yeah,
doubt about it. We definitely got worse.
yeah. It's a shame, but the days of talent stacking are over for Kirby Smart. We'll see if he's able to pull another another rabbit out of a hat here, but it's a bit worrying in Georgia for sure. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Falcons are, it feels like there's a new era right now, and they've returned a familiar face to man the show. Quarterback Matt Ryan has officially been hired as the president of football operations. Is there a situation in the NFL that this reminds you of? Just the situation in any sport.
I would have to say Iser plan, Steve
Yeah,
Eiserman, Detroit Red Wings. If you guys don't know, Eiserman was a phenomenal player in Detroit during their golden years when they won, was it back-to-back-to-back cups in the 90s?
yeah, they won three straight cups. The
Yes.
dynasty, the streak. My goodness, it was the Red
Yes.
Wing Empire.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal team. But after retiring, Eiserman came back as a GM, and I hope that what happens with Matt Ryan is a little bit better than what happened with Iserman. Iserman did hit on a lot of things, but overall, I don't think the Iser plan was as much of a success as it would have hoped. Granted, he was sitting as a GM and not the president of football operations or whatever this position we've made up for Matt Ryan is, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think Iserman is a good comparison to make with Matt Ryan, but I hope that it doesn't happen like the Iser plan did in Detroit so far. But I'm gonna
Yes.
say Chris Spielman of the Detroit Lions is probably the most ideal situation for what Matt Ryan is doing, maybe the most ideal comparison. Because
Yeah,
Spielman of the
definitely.
Lions, he's definitely turned the franchise around since 2021 when he hired Dan Campbell. And if
Yeah.
Matt Ryan can make a hire like that, can make a hire like a Dan Campbell, then this Falcons team is set. It seems like they are a head coach away for sure. Do you think that there's a way that this doesn't work at all?
Now, look, there's always a way that it doesn't work out. We know that as Atlanta fans. We've sat through two quarterbacks specifically drafted since Matt Ryan, and obviously a big free agent signing with Kirk Cousins, and almost got Deshaun Watson. Thankfully, we didn't. So of course, there's a way this doesn't work out. We've seen this with Atlanta. It's not worked out before. However, with the consulting firm that Arthur Blank hired, was it Sportscast? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I want to say it was Sportcast. Yeah,
Sportscast. Yeah. I doubt it. I think that Arthur Blank, I gotta stop calling him that. Arthur Blank realized that the issue with his decision making was his circle itself. His circle was telling him the wrong things. There's a reason why Rich McKay's not in the same position he was anymore. I think he finally realized that and he decided to pull the plug on that. I think with that comes the ability to move on from our mistakes in a way that we haven't been because everybody hires the wrong coach. And a lot of teams are moving on from their coaches who, aren't actually as bad as coaches we've had.
right.
So to me, yeah, there's a way this works out, but I don't see this having the same long-term effects if this doesn't work out, as we've seen with other eras of Falcons football, where, we sign a guy like Dan Quinn, who actually brought us to heights that we could not really imagine, but we held on to him for way too long. Traded away, I don't know if it was Matt Ryan who requested a trade. I believe Matt did request a trade, but we traded away Matt Ryan, who was supposed to be our guy for the next few years under Arthur Smith, who, mind you, Arthur Smith, that era was starting to move upwards before Matt Ryan left. We were looking at actually, he'd never really moved from the record he was at.
Yeah, he was 7-10 the whole year, the whole
Yeah,
time.
whether it was with Desmond Ritter, but if you give Matt Ryan that team, uh, I think there's a solid chance that we're making the playoffs. I think there's, a lot of things that have gone wrong with this organization when it comes to leashes being too loose, but I don't see that happening anymore with this new consulting firm, with this new president of football operations, which, we really hope that Matt does a good job. But I mean, who better than Matt? He's the only guy who's experienced a winning culture in the history of Atlanta. And I mean that. We did not have a winning culture at all through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. When we made the Super Bowl, we did not have a winning culture. We didn't make the playoffs the year before. We didn't make the playoffs the year after. We've never had a winning culture. Matt Ryan was the first person to bring that to Atlanta. Who better than Matt Ryan to bring that back to Atlanta? Nobody else knows winning except for Matt Ryan, and people do not realize that. He is cursed with being an Atlanta Falcon, but nobody else has known winning in this football organization except for Matt Ryan. So I think this is going to work out. I really do.
Yeah, it'd be kind of similar to the Giants hired Eli Manning to be a front office position as well. But nah, I think Matt Ryan is his role is going to be a little bit more of a figurehead compared to the general manager role, which is where I'm getting into this. The Falcons are currently interviewing several general manager and head coaching candidates. Bears assistant GM Ian Cunningham seems to be the early frontrunner, but 49ers director of scouting operations Josh Williams has been an interesting name to consider. I've heard a couple of rumors that he might be the guy too. But Lions COO Mike Disner and Panthers executive vice president Brant Tillis are also on the call. Which one of these names excites you the most?
The only one I can really talk on is Ian Cunningham, considering the majority of these guys, I truly don't know what Josh Williams has done for San Francisco, and I
Yeah,
don't know what Mike Disner's done for Detroit, and same thing with Brant Tillis. I couldn't write down what they've done on a piece of paper because a lot of it's behind the scenes stuff that, we don't see. But that doesn't mean that I'm not excited for Ian Cunningham because
yeah,
this guy took a Chicago team that I don't think people realize uh, how much they were close to sinking. I think it's actually really similar to the situation that Atlanta's in right now, where you don't really know who your quarterback is, and you have some talent, but you don't know who your quarterback is. You've got a guy starting, but we haven't seen enough out of him. But Ian Cunningham, I believe he was the one who, correct me if I'm wrong with this one, Owen, but the trade with Carolina,
yeah, that was.
yes, that trade has to be talked about more. That is one of the most legendary trades in NFL history.
Hmm.
He took, um, man, I don't even remember. It was a first overall
First
pick,
overall
wasn't it?
pick. Yep,
Yes.
just the first overall pick. Just Bryce Young.
For DJ Moore
Hmm.
and another first overall pick.
Caleb Williams.
And I believe some other
It was a
uh,
second round pick.
second rounder. That's what it
They
was.
used it to pick
Look,
Luther Burden.
that team is not close to what that team is without that. Ian Cunningham masterfully went from a first round quarterback with Justin Fields that he was ready to move on from, and I'm really, I think, with hindsight, happy he did, but was
Yeah,
able to take that in the most awkward stage a team can be in, where you don't know if you have your quarterback. That is the most awkward stage you've been because you've committed too much, especially with a first rounder, to just move on, and especially with as a GM keeping your job. Like that's not happening. Doesn't matter if you didn't draft him. It's very, very, very rare that you see a guy get out of that situation well. But this dude took Justin Fields and that all right Bears team to the best roster they've seen since the dare I say the Mitch Trubisky days.
yeah.
Like
No, agreed.
it's phenomenal. It is phenomenal. I mean, what a move. I don't know. That was beautiful. To be able to transition from Fields to Caleb Williams and to give him Luther Burden, to give him Colson Loveland, who has not been a bust, really turned his season around. And that run game, picking up Swift was extremely underrated. I think people were ready to give up on him after the beginning of this year, but Swift really, really, really pulled his season around. And him and Monangai, phenomenal running back duo. That's one of the most lethal running back duos in the league, and neither of them are expensive running backs. That's the other thing. They're both cheap.
Absolutely. The
Yeah.
Bears just seem to be doing everything right, and that is definitely due to Poles himself. Give credit for that, but Ian Cunningham has been great. I think Ian Cunningham, his resume also, he was also part of the Eagles scouting staff and the Ravens scouting staff. So a guy for both Howie Roseman and learning under Ozzie Newsome, sign me
Yeah.
up, dude.
Yeah.
Sign me up. I really hope Ian
Seriously.
Cunningham goes
Hire
to
him
Atlanta.
tomorrow.
But going into head coaching interviews, I definitely took one name off here. I'll talk about it later. But the Falcons interviewed or scheduled interviews with a few of the following: both the Seahawks DC and OC, the Dolphins head coach or former Dolphins head coach, the Dolphins DC, the Browns head coach, Panthers defensive coordinator, Packers defensive coordinator, Broncos DC, and the 49ers DC. Which one of these do you think are front runners to take the job, and which one of these is a dark horse? You think?
Front runners, keep it simple. I only want to keep two names on this list for head coach, and that is Mike McDaniel and or sorry, whoa, whoa, my
Whoa,
bad.
you're all
Clint
good.
Kubiak and Kevin Stefanski. If you think that Kevin Stefanski is not a good coach in 2026, you don't know ball. This dude is
Right.
two-time coach of the year. This dude brought a Browns team that drafted Deshaun Watson, sorry, traded for Deshaun Watson, gave him the biggest contract guaranteed in the history of the National Football League. Cleveland, you want to know why nobody gives fully guaranteed contracts? That's why. That is why they don't do that. They gave away half their team for Deshaun Watson. This dude has started the season with six different quarterbacks. I'll name them right now if you don't believe me. Joe Flacco, Deshaun Watson, DTR, Kenny Pickett. We're at four.
Shador,
You might have to help me here, Owen.
Shador Sanders, and
Um,
Dylan Gabriel.
Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Thank you, the two rookies.
Hmm.
You want to talk about a guy not knowing what system to run? How about talking about a guy who doesn't know what quarterback to start? Because you've got a guy you took in the third round and a guy you took in the sixth round, and you're having the fans and the management and the players telling you to start one or start the other one. When you literally have a $100 million quarterback on the bench, and you have Joe Flacco when he started the season, who was legitimately took you to the playoffs a few years ago, and then balled out in Cincinnati as soon as you got rid of him, which you were essentially forced to do. And then on top of that, you have, I hate to say it, a former first round quarterback with Kenny Pickett on the bench. That dude is in coaching hell, and there is no other way to put it. If you blame him for any of that, I'm sorry, you don't know ball. This dude brought a Joe Flacco led Browns to the playoffs. And I don't care that Joe Flacco was balling. That dude was 44 or however old he was. You have to give, you got to tip your hat to him. So
Yeah.
I would love Kevin Stefanski. And with Clint Kubiak, I just want Ben Johnson 2.0. I think that that offense in the Seattle's been so efficient and also has been two-dimensional, which has been awesome to watch. Three-dimensional, actually, I would say. Um, so yeah, those would be my two guys. I'm not really interested in any of these other guys, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's a two-bed race between Clint Kubiak and Kevin Stefanski. I originally predicted the Falcons would land Harbaugh. We'll definitely get into
Yeah,
that, but I think that it's basically those two. And more on the Kevin Stefanski stuff. Andrew Berry also never got any other wide receiver outside of Jerry Jeudy for Kevin Stefanski and his quarterbacks to work with. Instead, he
yeah,
got Tyler Huntley for free agency as well. So that's a
right.
seventh QB for the Browns. You want to give
Seventh
the
quarter,
Browns the
dude.
25? Remember the 25 QB jersey the Browns had all those years ago?
Yes.
You can add in like seven QBs from just 2025 on that
Yeah,
Browns jersey.
dude. And people do not understand how important. I told you this, Owen. I've told you this a million times. I don't even know if I said it last episode, but good coaching cannot beat a bad GM in any world. You cannot beat a bad GM if you're a good coach, no matter how hard you try. You might be able to sneak a playoff year in, like Kevin Stefanski has done twice, but you cannot beat a bad GM. You will inevitably get fired and have it blamed on you, which is what we're seeing happen here. Uh, and past that, it is extremely important not just to have a good quarterback, but to have a guy who fits your image. And your image, Kevin Stefanski's image, was thrown away the second that they decided to trade away Baker Mayfield. And by the way, Kevin Stefanski has said on the record that he did not want the Deshaun Watson deal to happen. So you want to talk about a guy who's wanted to run his system this entire time is like it's ultra specific. Look at what's happening right now. It's not that Penix isn't a good quarterback in Atlanta. It's that he's not this type of quarterback we want for our system. That's not what Zach Robinson wanted. That is seemingly like pretty, inconvenient and small, but it matters a lot. Now imagine if the Falcons decided that we were going to draft Michael Penix, sign Kirk Cousins, and then sign five other quarterbacks
And
for
Tyler
the hell of
Huntley.
it, and then draft a quarterback in the seventh round. Like, what do you expect to happen, dude? I don't care if you have the best defensive player on the planet. You're not going to win any games.
Yeah, the Browns have just been in purgatory or in hell for the better part
Yeah,
of the
I wouldn't even
Stefanski
call it
era.
purgatory. You're right, it's hell.
And they got lucky once making the playoffs 13-4, and
Yes.
they have not made it since. But
And for my dark horse, Robert Saleh.
yeah,
Saleh? Is it Saleh?
yeah, Robert Saleh.
All
Robert
right. I
Saleh would be
always
an
pronounce.
excellent head coaching choice.
Yeah.
My only issue would be like who he gets at offensive coordinator. That was a big reason. That was probably the biggest reason why he had a downfall of the Jets outside of ownership. But
Yeah.
that would be a big hire for the Falcons.
And QB play on top of that.
100%. Having to be saddled with Zach Wilson, not a great deal. But
Yeah.
more on the positive side of the Falcons, we know that one thing is changing about them: their jerseys. The jerseys. They've announced that they're getting rid of those awful black and red jerseys with that awful lettering, and they're changing it up. What jersey design from the past do you think the Falcons should take inspiration from?
Dude, give me the red on silver. Red helmets, red jerseys, silver pants. That's what I want to see. That to
Love
me
that.
is the pinnacle of an Atlanta Falcons uniform. I love it so much. I miss it. I don't know why we don't do red on red. I don't know why we don't do red helmets anymore. I don't know why we haven't thought about red helmets, barring throwbacks. And thank God, I'm sorry, thank God we moved on from this era of jerseys. I do actually, the black homes have grown on me a little bit. It's, let me put it this way, it's a jersey I'm happy to own. That being said, they're still one of my least favorite jerseys in the league, and I mean that. I cannot stand what Nike does with these, or what Nike was doing in that era.
Yeah.
They did with the Rams, just this weird, like, to me, a football jersey has to have like it has to have a bit of tradition and lineage to it that I feel like Nike was ignoring. It makes us feel like we were created 5 years ago. I feel like a what do they call
The color rush jerseys.
expansion team. I
Yeah.
feel like an expansion team, you know? I hate it. I wish I just give me something with block letterings. Give me it simple on the front. I don't want this big ATL, that's like half the jersey size on the front. And I hate how big the logo is on the helmets. I don't think enough people talk about that. It is half the helmet. I hate it. I can't stand it. And I do think that like our last jerseys were a lot, like when it comes to just overall, I think they were a little bit cluttered, but I would take those 11 out of 10 times over the ones we have now. So I am so excited. I think it's about time we move on from our shellless, soulless corporate gig we've got going on and move to, let's like have some heritage with the team.
Yeah, this team's jerseys, I don't know if I've said it, but they looked exactly like the jerseys from The Longest Yard. And when you are compared to a jersey from a comedy movie with Adam Sandler in it, I think that that is
Yeah,
a very bad situation to be in. So
agreed.
very glad the Falcons are going to change the jersey. I only have one thing to change outside of yours. I need block lettering on these Falcons
Yes.
jerseys. I need block lettering. Block le-
Yes.
why doesn't every single team have block lettering at this point?
I don't get it.
Yeah, it's just
I
not
don't get it. There's teams that don't have the block lettering and the block numbers, and it's fine. Uh, that's like a seldom few teams. The majority of them, like, dude, when the Steelers bust out the block numbers for their throwback nights, it looks so much better than like the round thing they've got going on there. I love
yeah.
the block numbers, the block lettering, everything. It looks so much better. There's only a few teams that get away with it, and even then, I would say it's not better. It's just comparable.
Right. But meanwhile, in the coaching carousel, we had some more firings take place after Black Monday, along with the position filling up. The Miami Dolphins have suddenly decided to let go of Mike McDaniel after announcing he'd be part of the GM search less than a week before. So, wow, what a what a crazy
Yeah,
transition for him.
what a surprise.
But the Steelers also said goodbye to the Tomlin era with the 18-year-old head coach, the 18-year head coach stepping.
I was about to say, wow,
Woo!
that's no wonder he stepped down. He's got to
Yeah,
worry about high school.
so the Steelers head coach stepped down after 18 years under the helm. Do you see Mike McDaniel or Mike Tomlin coaching for another team in 2026 to 27?
Uh, no. Really quickly though, I do want to talk about this. Mike McDaniel, he was told he was coming back as the head coach going into the 2026 season by the owner, and then or was it the GM? No, because they just fired their GM. It was definitely their owner.
Yep.
And then he had a dinner with him, is what the report says. It said that after that dinner, Mike McDaniel got fired. So I would love nothing more than to be a fly on the wall and
Yes.
just see what Mike McDaniel could have possibly said that got him fired so quickly and turned things around just so quickly. But when it comes to both of them being coaches, no. And I'll elaborate on that, obviously. Mike McDaniel's, Mike McDaniel, a lot of reports were saying that he lost the locker room at the end of the season there. And I don't actually blame Mike McDaniel for what happened in Miami. Like I said just a few minutes ago, good coaching can never beat a bad GM. And that Dolphins team was not equipped in any world to make the playoffs at all. Like, in what world could they have? I don't care if they had Don Shula as their head coach. They were not making the playoffs with that team. Their wide receiver one was, by week 3, was Waddle. And I'm sorry, but Tyreek, he did have
He
I
had an
think one
injury.
good game before he got injured, but he still like to me should not have been your wide receiver one. I think at this stage in his career, he should definitely be looked at as more of a wide receiver two. Although I feel like at this point he should be looked at as a wide receiver coach maybe. But in regards to McDaniel, I still don't blame him fully for what happened. However, losing the locker room, those player meetings that they had, there was no leadership for that team, especially with Tua faltering and then getting benched. But Tomlin still has another year on his Pittsburgh contract, and I very heavily doubt that any team is going to, or rather, Pittsburgh is going to. I don't think anything's going to happen there, is what I'm trying to say. I don't know
I agree.
why I can't put it into words, but I think that it's not going to happen until next season. I don't think it's going to happen until his contract runs out. I think that teams might be willing to wait another season, especially with how many head coaches and very good head coaches uh, in this rotation. I mean, you've even got Mike McCarthy stepping out there again as another name. So y- I doubt it's going to happen this season. I think the guy needs a break.
Yeah, I'm in agreement here. Tomlin been the head coach for 18 years, and Mike McDaniel. I mean, I felt like he was more of a mid head coach than a good head coach, but the Dolphins in general just had a mid culture for years and years and years. Like, if you look past the Dan Marino era, the Dolphins,
Oh yeah,
I think they've only won about one, maybe two playoff games. They haven't made it to the AFC Championship since Dan Marino's been around,
yeah,
and around
and
the
they still sold.
1990s.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's just been a losing culture that the Miami Dolphins haven't been able to get out of, and that is it. I will get into that later, but Dolphins just are not in a great spot right now, and neither are the Steelers, but they still have Mike Tomlin's contract for another year, so I don't think they're going to let any team get him unless they probably trade for him, which I don't see
yeah,
that happening either. I wouldn't
exactly.
trade for Mike Tomlin. But speaking of Mike Tomlin, if he does decide to hang up the coaching staff, hang up the headphones, he's got to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, right? He's
Yes,
got
without
to
a
be.
doubt. Without a doubt.
100%.
I would argue that he is a top three coach in Pittsburgh's history. And that is a list of what, five names? But
Yeah,
in
true
all
that.
seriousness, I think without a doubt, Mike Tomlin is one of the greatest coaches of all time. And if you think that Mike Tomlin was to blame for what's happening in Pittsburgh, I'm sorry. Besides Aaron Rodgers, which they won 10 games with, I'm sorry. Like, I hate to keep apologizing. But if you think that I don't think that they landed short of any expectations this season. They went into the playoffs with a 40-something-year-old Aaron Rodgers, won 10 games, by the way, won the division, which I don't care how bad any of the teams were this year. You're still playing Lamar Jackson 2 games a year, and you beat him when it mattered. I don't care if it was a missed field goal. You beat him. Mike Tomlin has a lot of credit for that. And besides that, are we really going to say that Russell Wilson was the quarterback to take them to the playoffs and win them a playoff game? This dude is sitting behind Jameis Winston, actually, past Jackson Dart. This dude is a third stringer. And then you look back even farther, this dude went to the playoffs with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. He has not had any good QB play since Big Ben was good, which still was a little bit, you know? It wasn't that recently. I don't think he was in shape to win a playoff game for the last 2 years of his career. So I don't know. I really think that Pittsburgh might have made a mistake uh, when it comes to their fan base and forcing him out the way they did, because you are going to see a much worse Pittsburgh team with a very similar roster next season.
Yeah.
And I promise you, if Aaron Rodgers retires, the reason why you guys win 5 games is not because Aaron Rodgers isn't there. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. I think that Mike Tomlin is easily he's about the same tier as Bill Cowher to me, and I think you can make an argument that he'd probably be the best head coach out of about half the franchises in their entire
Yeah.
career. He'd probably be
I
the
still
best
think he's the
Falcons head
top of the.
coach.
Oh yeah. I still think he's the top of the coaching market right now. I still think any team to get Mike Tomlin immediately. I mean, that guy is. I don't understand why people don't realize he is a Lombardi. He's a Shula. He is the best of the best when it comes to coaches. He's your
Yeah.
Parcells. He's a genius. I do think that he could, hire better coordinators. And I don't know if I want his style of play in Atlanta when it comes to the just very slow, begrudging run the ball offense.
playing down to
I think even
competition.
Harbaugh is a little bit better at running that offensively,
Hmm.
but you're still looking at one of the greatest coaches of all time. And wherever he goes next, I would not be surprised if they're also immediately a contender.
And speaking of John Harbaugh, excuse me, it appears that he has finally found a destination. The New York Giants, according to Adam Schefter, are finalizing a deal to make John Harbaugh their new head coach. What would you grade this hire, Grant? I know
uh,
it stings.
it stinks, but it's an A plus.
Yeah,
John Harbaugh is one of the greatest coaches, also one of the greatest coaches of all time. Like,
far
he's a
enough.
phenomenal coach. Also a genius. Has perfected what he does. I hate to see that he didn't end up in Atlanta, but New York is going to be a force to be reckoned with. I am
Absolutely.
legitimately scared for what the New York Giants are going to become with Jackson Dart, with Malik Neighbors, with um
Cam
wow, I'm blanking.
Scanabu,
Yeah, I would say less on Scadaboo. I think he's going to be a
that
phenomenal
defense.
RB2, but I don't think he's going to be elite. Yeah, with that defense. With that defense. I mean, it's going to be dangerous. It really is. With Evan Neal, like, what are we going to see out of this team?
Top 10. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I this is probably the most exciting move the Giants have made since drafting Malik Neighbors or even like since Eli Manning retired. This might be like the most amount of
Change.
this might be the most out of change the Giants have ever experienced. And
Yeah, very possible.
it's crazy how much they've been trudging in head coach past the
Yeah.
Coughlin era. They go after Ben McAdoo, he flames out. They go after Pat Shurmur, he looks like a deer in headlights. And then they go with Joe Judge from the
Yeah.
Patriots as their special teams coordinator. That doesn't go well. Brian Dable was supposed to be this offensive genius, and he only had one good year of offense, maybe two good years of offense. But this finally could be the coach
Yeah.
that brings the Giants back to
Yeah.
playoffs.
And
Like,
to me, this is important because as an Atlanta fan, this sticks, especially with us. But the Giants were starting to become so bad that it felt like it was destined, if that makes sense.
yeah,
You hit a point where you're so bad for so long, it's just who you are. Like the Jets, like the Browns, like the Falcons, where you just know that whatever move you're going to make is the wrong move. But this is the first time where we're seeing like a slap in the face about that. And now all of a sudden you've got John Harbaugh, one of the greatest coaches of all time, still one of the greatest coaches in the NFL right now, leading your show with the like most young promising team ever.
hmm
Uh maybe not ever, but you get my point. It's like when I saw that John Harbaugh didn't end up in Atlanta, you know what I told myself? I said, "Well, we're Atlanta. That makes sense. Why would he come to Atlanta? We just don't do that. We really don't. We don't get we don't make the big moves. We don't get the good acquisitions. We don't. We don't take the quarterback first overall. We don't get the big player in free agency. We don't make the big hire. We never do that because why? I don't know. I actually don't know. For coaching, I understand because why would you come to Atlanta if you're Harbaugh? We never do that. You'd rather go to a place like New York where they sometimes do that or they have a history
yeah,
of doing it. Atlanta doesn't have that history of doing that. So to me, that's huge to what New York can do, and it's completely shattered like uh what their ceiling is and who they are.
yeah. And John Harbaugh goes to a place that they've been dying for winning football for
Yes.
years.
Again, they're
They've
this
only made
close,
the playoffs two times in 14 years
dude.
since Eli Manning led them to the Super Bowl
Yeah.
all those years ago. They're
They're so
dying.
close.
They're so three times, excuse me, three times, but they've been just dying for relevant football. If they can even win the NFC East at any point in Harbaugh's tenure,
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
success.
But yeah, it'd be
Regardless,
phenomenal.
I, even with like his penchant for blowing big leads with Baltimore, he's still a good head coach, bar none.
Yeah,
And I did not think that Baltimore would
100%.
fire Harbaugh or anybody would have the chance to get him.
No,
But
I
now
actually
he's with the
I
Giants.
I found a message I sent to my friends on September 10th of this season where I said I think that Raheem Morris may get another year and we'll fire him and hire um, John Harbaugh.
I do remember that.
And I found it and I just immediately sent it to them again. And I was like, nobody ever argue with me about anything ever again. I called this from so long ago because I was saying that in the beginning of the season when they hit 1-3, and I was hearing about all the buzz in Baltimore because all the fans were really starting to call for his head. I said I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised if Baltimore moves on from him. And
Yeah,
also, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Burrow hits the market after next season.
absolutely. Well, now that John Harbaugh has been hired by the Giants and two new head coaching vacancies have been put into place, how would you regrade? How would you replace all of your head coaching vacancies?
I think the top of the list for me still has got to be Baltimore,
Right.
and I'm still going to take Atlanta at two. I still think that the Atlanta Falcons are a promising place to go to. You've got a lot of young talent. You still have a first round quarterback on the bench who, in my opinion, hasn't shown you more bad than good. And I don't think that people talk about that enough. There's so much negativity towards him, but he has not shown us more bad than good. I'm not saying he's shown us more good than bad, but he's not a worrisome prospect like JJ McCarthy, where he's legitimately shown you more bad than good. Or even Shadur Sanders, who's also shown you more bad than good. The media just doesn't talk about it for some reason, even though they love to spread negativity about him. But
Right.
I still think Atlanta's up there too, especially with this whole, changing. I think that a head coach could really come in here and set. I think he has a lot more flexibility than he would at other teams because we're at the point where we need anything and we need a system. And if a guy like Harbaugh had come to Atlanta, I wouldn't be surprised if uh, Ryan let him take the role of GM. I wouldn't be that surprised. For me, three's got to be Tennessee. Tennessee's you've got Cam Ward. That's just about it, but I think that's enough to make anybody happy.
Yeah.
Four, I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. The favorable thing for me with Pittsburgh is ownership. I think that any coach is going to be happy in Pittsburgh. You know, you've got the ability to have a long tenure, and you know that you're not going to get fired for no reason. You know, you're not going to be a sacrificial fire, which is a thing in the NFL, very much a thing in the NFL, and it happens to a lot of coaches. But you know, you're not going to be that sacrificial fire after 3 seasons. Five, I don't even know why I put them this high. Honestly, I'm going to change this. I'm actually going to put my five as Arizona. Nothing really to say there. Six is going to be Miami. That city's in an absolute rut. I don't even know. And that owner to me showed you that there's not a lot of loyalty he's got with the head coach. Seven's Cleveland, eight's Las Vegas. There's honestly nothing I could say about either of those teams.
Yeah. I didn't make a lot of changes to mine either, except the fact that I put Tennessee at three. You kind of inspired me. I think Cam Ward at Tennessee lead. He's very promising, although he looked really bad at the beginning part of the season. I think that Tennessee, with a couple of free agent moves, could move to the top. I
And
just
he finished
I don't
strong.
trust
He
their
finished
general
very
manager.
well.
I just don't trust their general manager to make the right
Yeah,
moves.
that's
And
fair. That's a good
Tennessee
point.
is kind of like those situations where it's just a turnover. It feels like just like coach and roster turnover and over and over again. They're just in a rut right now. Uh, Arizona, at least, like you have the chance of Kyler Murray coming back, and he could lead you to like some like a mid-season. And they also have a good bit of pieces in defense. But Pittsburgh is five to me, just because of the dire strait of their roster, especially their
Yeah,
offense. They have nothing on that offensive side of the ball. And hopefully Caleb Johnson shows something because they just have nothing. And the defense, who knows how they're gonna do now with just T.J. Watt and Joey Porter. Is Alex Highsmith gonna be who he was? Is Cam Hayward gonna retire now that Mike Tomlin is gone?
right. No, there's a lot of questions.
But the biggest change I have at number 8 is the Miami Dolphins. I rank them below the Browns and the Raiders because the Dolphins are in cap hell right now. They have negative 17 million in cap hit because of the contracts to Tua and Tyreek, who are owed a combined over 100 million dollars each in cap hit. So Miami is in such a rough spot, and the losing culture. I just don't think that any experienced head coach would want to go to Miami right now and
No.
try to fix Tua. But now let's go to the NFL playoffs to talk about something more optimistic. The wild card came and went, and almost every game went down to the wire. The first one between the Rams and the Panthers was great. Panthers were almost the first team to win a playoff game with a losing record since they did it in 2014. But Stafford finds Colby Parkinson with less than a minute to go to give the Rams a 34-31 win. Are the Rams still a team that peaked too early?
No, I don't think they are. I don't think that they ever peaked too early. I think that the league was kind of in a transition period at that point, and we had a lot of teams still trying to shape their way into the playoff picture. And I think that the Rams were just not one of those teams. I think that they were just already there. But I think that when you turn around and look at the season and you look at everybody's records and you look at where the Rams are, I think that this is exactly where they are. And I think that they're not that much better than a Jacksonville or a Buffalo or a Seattle or a San Francisco or even a Chicago, you know? So I don't think so. However, I do still think that there are some issues, and I'd love to know what your opinion on that is.
Yeah, I think the special teams are obviously the biggest issue for the Rams. I didn't see that as a huge problem in the middle of the season, but it really has shown its ass later on this season.
Yes,
And
definitely.
Stafford has looked a lot more rattled, which is something that I did not expect. I thought that
Yeah.
Stafford had stopped playing bad against teams over 500, but it just doesn't seem like the case. I think Stafford, I, I, I don't know if I trust him. Just like
Yeah.
point blank, I don't know if I trust him to lead this team to a Super Bowl again. And that's crazy to think for a guy with 40 touchdowns, but I don't trust him right now. So I think this team did peak too early. I think this team definitely showed its best football at the beginning to the middle of the season, and they just seem to be on a downward turn. I don't know. Speaking of Stafford, why do you think he looks so rattled in this game?
It's not just this game. It to me starts at the Atlanta game. Stafford looked absolutely horrible in the Atlanta game. Stafford looked like he was wearing his helmet on backwards. I don't know what happened. Well, I do know what happened. Pass rush happened.
Yeah.
We really, really, really got to Stafford that game. And that's what happened to him last week against the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers, when they were putting pressure under Stafford, Stafford was shaky. There's no other way to put it. He was rattled, he was shaky. Not only that, but Stafford did sustain a hand injury. It was not a bad hand injury, a serious injury, but this is the NFL playoffs we're talking about. It very well could have been a more serious injury than they're showing it to be. But regardless of what it is, they're going to tape his fingers on sideways if they have to. It doesn't matter. He's going to play next week or this week, I guess. The point is that pass rush issue that Stafford has is seeming to be an Achilles heel for this Rams team. Well, there is another one we also need to talk about, and that is their secondary, which has been god awful. In what world is Bryce Young putting up 31 points against you? That secondary might not be able to win a football game. They might be able to beat Chicago, but I don't know if they're going to be able to make the Super Bowl with this secondary.
Yeah, the secondary is really bad. When you have Quentin Lake as your number one cornerback, it is a big flaw with the Rams. They desperately need to draft a cornerback, and they might be able to with the Falcons pick, but
Yeah,
uh,
it's
that'll
true.
that'll take a year. But now at the Panthers, is this only the beginning for them? Do the Panthers have more to cross? Do you think they make the playoffs next year, or even win the NFC South?
This is the beginning of something beautiful,
Oh yeah,
something that only happens to a few teams in the NFL. And
must be
I
good
think
then.
that you can look at one of the best divisions in the NFL, the AFC North. There's a team in there that always wins the division. And I'm not even saying that Carolina's going to do that, but I'm talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm talking about going 9-8. And I
Yeah,
think that the Carolina Panthers are in for a beautiful ride. This is the beginning. This is the beginning of their 9-8 stretch. where they don't go over 10 wins for the next 5 years, and Bryce Young still plays mid, the rest of the team is mid, and the rest of the division catches up to them. So, yes, this is the beginning, but no, they're not going to make the playoffs again. And no, they're not going to win the NFC South.
Yeah, I don't think that the Panthers are. I wouldn't really bet them to make the playoffs. I don't think I'd bet anybody in the NFC South to make the playoffs. I would just completely rid that division for the
Yeah,
playoffs if I had the chance. But
I
this
agree.
team, this team just felt so fluky all year round.
Yeah.
That's just the
I mean,
case
they
with
were in a three-way tie for the division. Like,
yeah, and they
let's not
lost the
forget
game they
that.
needed to make the playoffs, and they still made it in,
Yeah, let's not forget that. They
which is
might
so
have won some
crazy.
good games this year, but had Atlanta been in that same position, we would be saying the exact same thing. The only difference is that at least this is something new for Atlanta. Bryce Young has been this quarterback for years, and he has not done anything. And guess what? He didn't do anything this year. I mean, he did a little bit, but not the rate that he is growing is legitimately concerning. Somebody needs to put this dude on growth hormones because this is what, year three, year four, year five, year
Yeah,
four?
this is year three.
Year
It's
three,
first we've
geez,
seen
wow. Oh
Bryce.
yeah, because they just took his fifth year option. Year three, and he's finally having games where he throws for 200 yards. Like, what are we doing, man? You're a first overall pick. I don't care. Like, this is way too late in his development for him to not be showing flashes of anything. Like, it'd be a completely different story. This is like Caleb Williams in his rookie year, where, all right, yeah, he's been a slightly below average quarterback, but he's throwing absolute piss missiles that nobody else in the league can think of doing. But Bryce Young, like, has not shown us anything at all that would make me think that Andy Dalton is not a better candidate than him. And Bryce Young has had some good games this season. But to me, there's not like the physical upside of it or the efficiency upside of it or the IQ upside. Like, there is no upside. He just had some good games. But you don't have that, like, he's not known as a super processor, or he's not known as a
Escape artist.
right. And what is he known for? Like, legitimately, I don't know. He just plays football, I guess, and he has some
Yeah.
good games. But so does Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like,
I saw on Twitter there was a good comparison that was made to Bryce Young. Eli Manning. I think Eli Manning
yeah,
is a good comparison to make for Bryce Young because Eli
yes,
Manning looked terrible in his first couple of years. Like he would 50% of the time he would look like he didn't belong in the NFL. 30% of the time he looked like one of the worst starters in the league. Like about 15% of the time he looked all right to good, and then 5% of the time he looked like he could rival Tom Brady. That is how
right,
Bryce Young is. The guy just
yes.
somehow figures it out on the late stretches of a game every single time, and that is why the Panthers are in the playoffs. So I think it's fluky, but I also would not be surprised if the Panthers like fluke their way with a great defense to the playoffs again, maybe even with 10
Yeah.
wins.
I mean, anybody could do it at this point in the NFC South. I would not be surprised if New Orleans does it next year.
Moving on to a much better division, the NFC North. This Saturday night rivalry game was an NFC North rivalry between the Bears and Packers. For the first time since 1941, the two teams played, and the Packers looked unstoppable early on, jumping out to a 21-3 lead by the end of the second half. But the Bears scored 25 points in the fourth quarter to win 31-27. An electric game, and the cardiac Chicago Bears keep their season alive while the Packers suffer a gut-punching elimination. Who do you think is the most to blame for the Packers blowing this lead?
I hate to say it. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a great coach. There's a lot I like about him, but I do
A
blame
great guy.
LaFleur for this. I think that LaFleur has to take some accountability for this, as in all the accountability, because this was a total collapse on all three sides of the ball, which we almost never see. The only time we've seen a team fall apart this badly in a playoff on all three sides of the ball. Wait a second. Wasn't Matt LaFleur on that coaching staff?
I was going to say Kirby
Uh,
Smart, but
yeah. But no, I'm talking about the 28-3 Atlanta Falcons, as we're way too familiar. In case you guys
yep.
didn't know, Matt LaFleur was the quarterback coach during that season. That was Matt Ryan's best season. He won MVP. Um, through like 40 something touchdowns. I don't know. The point is phenomenal. One of the best quarterback season we've ever had as an Atlanta Falcon. That being said, Matt LaFleur does have to take the blame for me on this one. There was just a collapse on all three sides of the ball. The offense could not move the ball for the life of them to end the game, besides that one touchdown in the fourth quarter that ended up not mattering. Is that a word? Mattering?
Yeah, not mattering is a word.
I don't know. It just feels weird. Anyways,
Got to
on
pull
the
a
defensive
dictionary.
side, I mean, dude, that I think it was the a wheel route. It was I saw a breakdown of it. I thought it was so cool. It was a touchdown pass that Caleb threw. Um, it was I want to say it was a
So fourth
what's the
down
word I'm
and
looking
10.
for here? It was a bait for a wide receiver screen, and they had the tight end kind of flush out to look like he was blocking. He was lined up on the O line. They had him flush out to look like he was going out to block.
It was a deke.
And on that play, the tight end ends up running a wheel route through. And obviously, that's fantastic play call design. It was actually Ben Johnson got it from Washington. Washington used it against him in that very specific way. But the thing that stood out to me the most in that is the Bears had the ball in plus territory. I think actually near like the 40 or 30-yard line. And they have been throwing the ball all game. They have not been able to run the ball for the lives of them. Throwing the ball all game, especially in this fourth quarter where they're kind of against the clock. And the Packers were in cover one for this. And on the other side, there was another receiver running like a crossing route, or no, it was a corner. The point was, regardless of where that safety went, that was going to be a touchdown. And I don't see why in any world, if I'm Green Bay, I'm running cover one at all and selling the run against this team that has ran the ball for 25 yards on you. They had 50 yards at the end of the day rushing. So that to me was a huge mistake, especially in plus territory where they're gonna take a play action shot. Like I don't know, it's stuff like that. You that can't happen. I know it's on the defensive coordinator, but the fact that it happened on all three sides of the ball to me speaks on Matt LaFleur than more than anything. But any answer I think would be fine for this question. Well, how about you?
Matt LaFleur was definitely the biggest architect of this collapse, but I think that the biggest culprit was the special teams coordinator, Rich Bisaccia. The Packers missed 2 field goals on this one, and their punting it was not great either. And it's been the case every single year. It's always a weekly tradition that the Packers either shave away 3 points or they give their opponent either 3 points or a touchdown. Their special
Yeah,
teams is always so bad, and it's such a big culprit to why they've not been better. I mean, literally in 2021, the special teams lost in that game too, and that's why they hired Riz Bisaccia, because he was a good special teams coordinator. But they they somehow keep messing up on it. I don't know what it is. It might just be like Lambeau Field itself. I mean, both of these losses happened in Lambeau Field, but the special teams coordinator's got to go. I think it's officially the end of Rich Bisaccia's tenure. Uh, but I want more thoughts on Matt LaFleur. Do you think Matt LaFleur deserves to be fired for this loss?
no, I don't think so. I think you get a lot more passes before you get fired. I think it's bad to sacrificial head coach firings are not good for your team. But where the Packers are right now with their development, with the age of the team that they have, this is what I think this might be the youngest team in the or the second youngest team in the NFL behind New England. But you've got a young quarterback with Jordan Love who has been developing very well and played a fantastic game uh, in Soldier Field this week, which I do want to mention. But you are risking a lot by firing him. Not a lot of things are promised to go well with firing him. You don't want to give your quarterback another system to have to learn. You don't want to have to completely shake up this receiver room. There's a lot of things that collapsed this season for Green Bay. And I think that coaching was one of the last problems that they had. So no, I don't think you should be fired for this loss. I think you get a lot more passes before you get fired because Lord knows if Matt LaFleur enters the market, he is going to be one of the highest, if not the highest, candidate for a head coach.
Yeah, not to mention all the injuries the Packers suffered at the end of the
Yes,
season. Micah
that's
Parsons
what I
being
was
hurt,
referring to.
Christian Watson being hurt, Tucker Kraft being hurt,
Tucker
Jordan
Kraft.
Love getting lost in the middle of the season. The Packers' five
Yeah.
game losing streak should surprise nobody with all those injuries. You got to give Matt LaFleur another shot, even though it feels like the team has been on a ceiling these past couple of years. They've literally been the seventh best team in the NFC 3 years in a row, but they've made the playoffs 3 years in a row. So I think Matt LaFleur still has a chance to lead this team to something better. They have a chance to win the AFC North. They suffered so many injuries last year. So I don't know. I don't even know if I should even get to question if the Packers fired LaFleur, even though they haven't worked out a good
Well,
deal. But
I do
it's
want to talk
interesting to
about that.
speculate. So why
I
not?
do want to talk about that because I am a firm believer of two things. One, don't believe the reports 100%,
Right.
even if it's the best insider. Well, okay, maybe not. Maybe if it's besides Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport, never believe it 100%. And two, I don't believe it until I see it specifically
Right.
because Matt LaFleur at one point was questionably on the hot seat. There was a lot of talks about him during the regular season. There was inside talks of him actually getting booted if he didn't win a playoff game for Kevin Stefanski. That was talk. I'm not saying that that was serious, but that was talk. And now all of a sudden we get reports that uh,
They're working
Matt
out a
LaFleur
contract.
is meeting with the owner to work out his contract extension. Now that's being finalized. And now all of a sudden we're hearing reports that that was not finalized and they didn't work out a deal. And now all of a sudden we're hearing buzz about the fact that some teams may be sending some trades Green Bay's way for Matt LaFleur. So all of a sudden we went from probably getting fired if he loses the game, losing the game to your rival in the most embarrassing fashion, to then to your job is guaranteed and you're getting an extension, to we don't even know if you're getting an extension anymore, and people might be sending you offers because it's worth checking. So I will believe it when I see it that Matt LaFleur is staying at Green Bay. But for now, I would view him as somebody I wouldn't mind giving a call, especially if I'm Matt Ryan, since we're, Falcons fans, might as well talk about it here. Or this is the guy that brought you to your best season of glory. I, wouldn't mind the idea of giving him a call.
Yeah, I think if I were the Atlanta Falcons and LaFleur is on the market, I'd hire him immediately. He
Yes.
he's such an underrated head coach in the league. I
Yes.
know that the Packers they've been dragged by Matt LaFleur with young and unproven rosters to the playoffs these past 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And I
100%.
know that it's because Matt LaFleur started out with the NFC Championship in 2019 and in 2020, and then the number one seed in 2021, that people are like, oh, he's hit a ceiling with this team. Only getting them 9 wins each year, unlike 2019 to 2021. And I think that it's completely false. I think that this whole saga is kind of just a rip on Packers fans because I see a lot of Packers fans being like, Matt LaFleur has got to go. I would not want to my coach. And he's frustrating. Don't get me wrong. He's frustrating sometimes. But the fact that the Packers are still in the playoffs and they've made the playoffs the past 3 seasons feels solely due to Matt LaFleur. And I
Yeah.
would hire him in a heartbeat if I was Atlanta. And he has the
Agree.
connections too. But
Yes.
now the Rams and Bears face off in Chicago on Sunday, June 18th at 6:30. Matthew Stafford is taking on a familiar opponent, and Caleb Williams is looking to clinch a spot in the NFC Championship in just his second year. What a crazy second season he's had.
Yeah.
But X
Wow.
Factor for the Rams and X Factor for the Bears. What do you got?
For the Bears, Colston Loveland and that running back duo to me is the X factor. If the Bears can get Colston Loveland involved, like they did against Green Bay, and if that running game puts it together again, which the fact that Chicago was able to win without the running game is very, 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 very telling about how good that team is. I think that people need to realize that this is a team that does depend on the running game a lot. That's how they beat Philadelphia at Philly on Black Friday, which now might not seem that crazy considering they're a round past them. But you got to understand, this is a Chicago team halfway through the season under a new coach, new system. One and a, like every game matters so much to a quarterback who's in his second season. So the Caleb Williams we saw back then is not close to the Caleb Williams we saw now, and that's not a good thing for his past. He's gotten a lot better, is what I'm trying to say. I know I said it backwards, but the point is that running game not showing up for Green Bay and them still putting up 31 points is very, very, very telling. So I think if the Bears can get the running game involved and they can get Colson Loveland involved in that game, I don't know what can stop them. And then when I turn around for the Rams, the most important position on the field, the most important thing on the field for the Los Angeles Rams has to be that secondary. It has to be that secondary. If this secondary falls apart against Chicago, they are not winning that game. I don't care how good of a quarterback Matt Stafford can be. They might not win that game because this is a Chicago team that prevails. And I also want to mention that this Chicago team was number one in the league in regular seasons in takeaways. And I think that if Chicago gets a lot of pressure on Matt Stafford, we might be seeing another 2 to 3 interception game from him. So I think that it's very, very, very important to the Rams that this secondary stands their ground on this field, especially against a quarterback like Caleb Williams, who seems to always find a way to find an open receiver, even if he's not there. He will find the spot, but he also does make mistakes. They can definitely capitalize on those mistakes. So that's my answer. I'd love to hear what your opinion is on that, Owen.
I was originally going to put Luther Burden in here, but I'm going to do a bit of a cop out and say Caleb Williams.
Yeah,
If we get the first half of Caleb Williams against the Packers, the Rams could easily win this game. Caleb Williams did not look good in that first half, but if we get
no,
the
he looked
second
horrible.
half Caleb Williams, which we usually do, I think the Bears could win this game easily. And that the wide receiver against the cornerbacks for the Rams could be one of the biggest mismatches in this entire game. But
Yeah,
on the Rams side, I think you got to win with maintaining the time of possession. You got to make sure to win the clock. So I think Kyron
yes,
Williams is going to be very important for the Rams. They haven't really been able to get him loose in any of these past games, but they lost against the Falcons because Kyron Williams wasn't his best. The Seahawks, Kyron Williams wasn't his best. He needs to get back to being an all-pro running back in order for the
right.
Rams to
Yeah.
pull out this game, in my opinion. But
Also, on that topic, I do want to mention that two things. One, the fact that the Rams are not a team that plays the possession game at all. They're a team that runs the ball, sorry, not runs, I mean to say run the ball up the field metaphorically,
right,
over and over and over again as much as they can. They're going to be scoring as much as they can. So I think that is something to pay attention to because on top of that, the Rams showed us last week that they don't always win the fast-paced scoring game. They don't always win it. They barely beat the Panthers. And that was not because the Rams were having an off week or because the Panthers were playing absolutely phenomenally. The Panthers made a ton of mistakes, but so did the Rams. And the Rams' mistakes were, if anything, telling to their weaknesses rather than flukes in the same way that the Panthers were. So it's really, really, really important to the Rams that they play this possession game, but they won't. I'll just tell you that right now. They're not going to play that possession game. That's not going to happen. They're going to be doing what they've done all season, which is scoring the ball as much as they can. And to be honest with you, I don't know if that's going to work this week.
Bears have one of the best safety duos in Jaquan Brisker and Kevin Byard. So I think Stafford's going to have a hard time throwing the ball downfield. But on this Los Angeles Rams season, do you consider this year a letdown for the Rams if they lose?
No, no. This is a really good Rams team that has an MVP quarterback, a phenomenal roster that's absolutely turned around in the last few seasons, specifically this year. Um, it's not that this is the year as much as it is this is a good year. To me, I wouldn't consider this a letdown. It's never Super Bowl or nothing, but especially when you weren't even in the NFC Championship last year. So, no, not a letdown. I would say maybe next season, if they make the NFC Championship, and then next season they lose before the NFC Championship, maybe. But no, this team didn't even make the NFC Championship last year. Well,
I don't know. I'm just not sure how Stafford is going to be next season. I think he's still going to be a top 10
fair.
quarterback,
No, that's fair.
but I don't know if he's going to be the undisputed best quarterback in the league like he was this year. So that's why I think this is a big letdown if the Rams lose because I don't know if you're
Right.
going to get this version of Stafford next season or the seasons beyond this. And you're going to
Yeah,
have to
it's more of a
start
window
planning.
thing.
Yeah, you're going to have to start planning for drafting a QB. And Stafford plays well like this, and then the defense lets you down. I think it is a big letdown considering how good this Rams team was at the beginning of the season. It'd be a big letdown for the Rams, especially because of how good the Seahawks are and how
Yeah.
good they could get. And then the
Yeah.
Niners come back, they could be healthy. This is a big opportunity for the Rams, and they need to take advantage of this. This is their shot, in my opinion. But what do you think is missing from Chicago to be the favorites to win the NFC?
Consistency, man. That's all that's missing. And that really specifically pertains to Caleb Williams himself, who has not been super consistent this year. He's boasting a 50% completion percentage. However, I do think that that stat is a little bit misleading when you look at his interceptions. This dude has had single digit interceptions for 2 years in a row, which is extremely important. The two interceptions he had against Green Bay were both on fourth downs. One of them was actually, dare I say, a beneficial interception where that ball probably had 20 yards of air and was picked off. So that's 20 yards the Packers lost of offense there. So I do think that Caleb Williams' completion percentage is less of an issue, as is his consistency, I think, is more of the problem here. He seems to be missing on the routine throws, as everybody knows. And this Chicago team in general seems to be narrowly escaping games that they, with hindsight, should be winning by more. It's the consistency. You shouldn't be beating the Bengals by 1 point and then beating the Packers by 1 point and then beating the Giants by 1 point and then beating the Eagles by two scores. Like there's no consistency with this team. So that's what it means to me.
Yeah, I agree. The consistency for Chicago, they can't seem to play a four-quarter game, in my opinion. And I think part of that just has to do with the pass rush. I don't think the pass rush is
Yeah.
particularly that strong. Montez Sweat is really the only guy in that team that can get to the quarterback effectively. Maybe this guy named Dexter too. He's pretty good, but outside of that, Tremaine Edmonds and T.J. Edwards suffer injuries, and that pass rush, just in general, the Bears don't really have that much of a defensive identity right now. It has to
No.
mostly do with the offense, and it has to rely on Caleb Williams playing God mode at its worst. And I don't see that really. Caleb Williams is only a sophomore, so I don't really see that
Yeah.
keep it going. But that's what I'm going to get as my score prediction, Grant. I actually think the Rams pull this one out, and I think if it's a close game, I think Matthew Stafford outclutches Caleb Williams in
Oh,
this one.
man.
And just that touchdown he threw against Colby Parkinson, I thought the
Oh,
Rams were
yeah.
for sure down and out. But Matthew Stafford in the second,
Beautiful ball.
with 2 minutes left to go, I think that Matthew Stafford delivers something to Devontae Adams, Parkinson, or to Puka Nakua, and the Rams pull away with a 30-28 win.
I got to disagree with you on this one. Couple things. First things, I've said this a million times, but I guess I've never said it on the podcast. I 100% believe that Caleb Williams is going to be an MVP in only a few short amount of years. I think that he has the potential to be the next GOAT, not better than Tom Brady, but the next GOAT in the sense of the next Mahomes, the next, you get what I'm saying here, the next
Yeah,
Montana, the next Mahomes, the
best player
next
of the 20s and
generational guy.
30s. Yeah,
Right. In my mind, nobody I've never seen what I've seen out of Caleb Williams at a quarterback. It's legitimately beautiful. The way that he's able to throw the ball with absolutely no footing, and that's one thing. That's brilliant. But on the routine passes, he has this touch that all of his balls are so catchable. I don't know how to explain it. It's the way he throws the ball. It's not too hard. It's not too fast. It's not too much of a drive. It's always this perfect, it feels like a dump off in the receiver's hands in the perfect shoulder, too. It's a type of IQ and fluidity you don't see from young quarterbacks, but any quarterbacks. I think it's comparable to Matthew Stafford, where he manages to put balls in places where you just, oh, wow. I don't want to put these words in my mouth. All right, I'll rephrase it. He's able to put passes into places you didn't think were possible to put them into.
yeah, the Windows is just amazing.
Yes, and on top of that, you said the Chicago team doesn't have an identity on defense, and I have to disagree with you on part of that. This team is a ball hungry team. In that
Oh, they
Green
do
Bay
lead the
game,
league in turnovers. Yeah,
they lead the league in turnovers, but not only that, in that Green Bay game, they forced, I want to say, three or four fumbles in that game. And although they might not have recovered all of them, that is a team that goes for the ball. It's very rare that a team doesn't get any of the fumbles. That's a lot of it is, I hate to say it, but kind of luck. It's kind of luck if you don't, who ends up with a fumble in a sense. Kind of right place, right time kind of thing. But That is a ball hungry team. They pounce on the ball. They rip for the ball. They tear for the ball. They swat the ball. They attack the ball. And the second half of that Green Bay game too was telling to me about this Chicago defense because they do have issues with pass rush when it comes to rushing four. However, the reason why Jordan Love was shut down so quickly, and especially on that last drive, which to me was actually beautifully called on defense. The Chicago Bears opted to not just blitz, but to blitz because they wanted Jordan Love to get the ball out of his hands in specific spots in the field. They were leaving soft coverages at specific parts of the field, knowing that Jordan Love was going to throw to that for the time game, which is so much better than playing a wussy drop eight where you're kind of just letting these guys sit back and find a hole in the zone. But this is a Chicago team that can bring the pressure, absolutely, and does have a DC that knows what he's doing. Every team does. I kind of sound like I'm pulling that out of my, you know what. But my point is, with the Chicago team, I do think that they're able to generate pressure at, um, I do think that they're able to generate pressure to Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Nashawn Wright, it's this Bears defensive identity is kind of like Nashawn Wright, right? Like he is one of the best interception getters in the league. He has 5 interceptions, but he also has some horrible routes against some receivers. And I don't know. I this Bears team, I don't think they scare me that much in defense. I don't. That's the thing. I mean, the Bears they do lead the league in turnovers, but they also are prone to giving up the big play. And I think Stafford could easily give up. He could easily get that big play to Adams and to Nakua, and then Williams brings it in for the touchdown. But I mean,
Yeah.
we'll see who wins out. I could definitely see Chicago winning, especially in Soldier Field. That'd be electric. But now moving on to the Sunday games, the Buffalo Bills headed into Jacksonville and snatched away a 27 to 24 victory away from the Jaguars. There were 4 lead changes, and Josh Allen ran it himself in the fourth quarter to clinch the victory and secure a matchup in Mile High against the #1 Denver Broncos on Saturday, January 17th. What was the deciding factor in this loss for the Jaguars?
I tell you what, I take notes on every game. I the notes I had for this game specifically was the difference between great and elite quarterback play. Josh Allen had a perfect game you could ask out of a quarterback. Trevor Lawrence had a fantastic game. The Jaguars, barring that botched field goal at the end of the first half, played an almost perfect game. But the difference is you can't stop Superman. And that's what Josh Allen is. That's who Josh Allen is. He's Superman. He's perfect. He played perfect. You couldn't beat that. You just can't.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that Trevor Lawrence throwing 2 interceptions didn't help Jacksonville either. And I think that
Right.
that's a big example of great versus elite quarterback play. Josh Allen is elite. The man is consistent. He's an MVP contender every single year. Trevor Lawrence is not that. And
No.
he's shown pretty poor performances these past a couple games, but he had a great stretch at the end of the season to make people think that he could be an elite quarterback, and then he craps his pants at the worst possible time. But how do the Jags keep this forward momentum going? They went from 4-13 to 12-5. How do they keep it going? Make sure it's not a fluke.
Bring in some more talent at wide receiver first off. I think that wide
Right.
receiver room's a little bit lacking this season.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like the Christian Kirk, I believe they waived him actually.
Yeah, they got rid of him.
Really kind of bit them. And the you know what? Travis
Yeah,
Hunter is not the player that he was drafted at. And BTJ has had a quieter season. I think they need to bring in some more talent at wide receiver, and I think they need to retain some key players on defense.
for sure. Parker Washington did break out for Jacksonville. I think they do need to address their wide receiver room a lot. They did they did do what I thought they would do by signing Jacoby Myers. I think that was a very good move for them. But the Jaguars I think they just need one more guy, maybe a receiver or a tight end too. But with no Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes on the other side, does Josh Allen have any excuse for not leading Buffalo to Super Bowl? Does this affect his legacy?
He does not have an excuse at this point. I really, really, really want to dive into at some point, maybe in a different episode. I really want to dive into the importance of Mahomes and Jackson not being in the playoffs this year. This is huge for any team in the AFC. This is insane. I think I said it to you earlier, off the podcast. Of course, this is a few weeks ago. It was the week that Mahomes was eliminated from the playoffs with the Chiefs. This is the time for an AFC team like Buffalo to make some huge acquisitions. This is a political vacuum we're seeing in the NFL right now.
Yeah,
There's nobody else that should step up besides you, Josh Allen, besides the Buffalo Bills. Anybody else who does it, it is because Buffalo didn't do it. Like, there's no reason. There's no reason why New England or Denver should be there above you. You should be there. You've been in this playoff run for how many years now? Like, come on.
yeah. This
It's
feels
time.
like the New York Knicks when Michael Jordan retired and they finally
Right.
made it to the championship and lost it. This feels
Right.
like that team. The Bills have to take advantage now. They can't lose four straight Super Bowls. This might be more painful than that.
Yeah.
But moving on to the Broncos. How has this Broncos team improved from the last time they faced the Bills?
Um, Man, that defense has stepped up a lot. But past that, I think that the offense has roughed out a few of the inconsistencies, although I don't think enough, I will
Yeah.
say.
I argue that the Broncos
So,
have not improved at all. I think that it might just be more to Bo Nix being able to lead the team past close games at
yes.
this point. Sean
Yeah,
Payton
that's really
somehow
what
being
I'm
the
talking
coaching
about.
wizard. This team just does not look this team looks the same as they did last year. And this is kind of something you expect out of Sean Payton, the short passing game. But the strong defense, something you don't expect. The Broncos just they look like the same team from last year.
Yeah,
And
they do.
we could just go straight to score predictions now, you think? What are your thoughts in this game?
Give me Buffalo 27 to 20. I think that the Broncos might score a touchdown in some garbage time to shorten the lead a little bit, but I don't know. I don't see the Broncos getting over the hump that Bo Nix is not a good quarterback.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think I'm gonna have it be like 20 to 14 Denver, just because I don't see that offense going anywhere. It's a big test for that Bills defense, but I think Josh Allen. I worry a bit about his receivers because he lost two of them, Tyrell Shavers and Cape Davis, due to ACL injuries. So I don't know who he's going to
Yes,
be throwing to, but I trust Josh Allen more than I trust Denver to
I
stop
agree.
him.
Yeah,
So I
and
think I'm gonna have Bills 20 to
past
17.
that, my biggest notes from that Jags game was Trayvon White had a fantastic game, and the wide receiver room really stepped up when they needed to. They really
True.
did. That was they played well. They stepped up, man. There were some guys over there that do not normally make plays, making plays when they need to. I mean, even was it Khalil
Gabe
Shakir that scored
Davis.
that touchdown?
Oh, Khalil Shakir, yeah.
And Gabe Davis, both of them just stepped up when they needed to. So, I very well could be their year.
Absolutely. Now moving on to the 4:30 p.m. slate, the 49ers and Eagles gave us a lot to talk about. Many people believe that the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles would fluke their way to a win thanks to defensive stops and their offense doing just enough like they always do. But everyone was proven wrong as the Niners snuck out a 23-19 victory with a clutch touchdown pass from Brock Purdy to Christian McCaffrey. And they held Jalen Hurts to just 168 yards and a touchdown. Shocking, I know. And they clinched a grudge match at the Seattle Seahawks on Saturday, January 17th at 8 p.m. And the Eagles have moved on from offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo as a result. How much blame does Jalen Hurts deserve for this particular loss? And do you see the Eagles moving on from Hurts if he continues to struggle next year or maybe even this year?
I do. I do think that that Jalen Hurts has a lot to blame for this loss. Look, I know the offensive coordinator situation with Kevin Patullo has been very lacking. I know that he's done better under other offenses. I'm not going to say he's done well. Uh, Maybe he's had a few years here and there, but even last season, he had like 23 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Like, he barely threw the ball. But my point is, Jalen Hurts clearly, there's been a lot of inside talk about his style of play, the fact that he's not able to play under center, the fact that he's not able to do things comfortably that you need a lot of quarterbacks to do. And I think that this is holding back. And honestly, Owen, I wonder how much of this is on Kevin Patullo or how much of this is the fact that his offense is hindered because Jalen Hurts is not the quarterback he needs him to be.
I think that Jalen Hurts should get a lot of blame for this, but I also agree that Nick Sirianni should get a lot of blame for this too. I mean, this guy's offense is supposed to be a philosophy that is supposed to work. And every other year, the Eagles' offense looks terrible. 2023, their looks really bad with the same cast. Then they add an all-pro talent and they end up going to a Super Bowl. But then now their offense looks bad again. I don't know how in the world Nick Sirianni can win a Super Bowl and still look like a really bad head coach. I think that
I
he
agree.
deserves some blame for this loss too. You could argue that
I
he's
agree.
not even a top 10 head coach in the
I
league.
could definitely agree with that.
I
His
think.
team has experienced a lot of collapses too.
Yeah.
That's
And the
saying
fact that
something.
the Eagles have drafted so many good players in defense is saving it, in my opinion.
Right. And they got players like Zach Bond, who are fantastic pickups. But I mean, this Philadelphia team could be on their third or fourth Super Bowl had things gone differently. Had they not collapsed that season where they lost first round in the playoffs to I want to say it was the Buccaneers.
Yep, it was the
Had they
Buccaneers.
not collapsed this year, I wouldn't even say collapsed. Had they not sucked this year, like legitimately, they've not been a good team.
Yeah.
Had they moved on from Jalen Hurts, there's so many things they could have do. They could be on their fourth Super Bowl in the last 7 years.
Yeah, it feels like the Eagles waste their defense every other year. But somebody who could be moving on from the team, AJ Brown. Do you see
Yes.
him potentially moving and where to?
Yeah, I do see him moving. I think that there's clearly some uh abrasion, I guess,
Yeah.
between him and Sirianni. Clearly, we saw that whole thing on the sidelines, and then right after he drops that pass to lose the game against the Niners. And he's clearly being unutilized in Philadelphia. If I were him, I'm not sure I'd want to be on Philadelphia either, to be honest with you. I think that he should go to Buffalo. I think Buffalo needs a really good wide receiver one, and man, would that be a dangerous combination. And you're also going to another Super Bowl contender, like right away.
Yeah, and I think that also talks about Sirianni too, like just not being able to have the culture right either. There's constantly
Right.
infighting. There's constantly like dumb
Yeah.
penalties the Eagles
That's why they
take.
collapsed. You don't collapse for no reason. It was it
Yeah.
five straight they lost that season?
Yes, yeah, it was like it's five straight. They lost to the Cowboys near the end of the season too. The Giants, the Seahawks, and with Drew Lock. It's
Oh
just
my
like
gosh. I forgot about that game.
the Eagles' culture is just so wishy-washy, and it feels like they need a Super Bowl to be able to wipe that stench, but
Right.
they can't get it together. But
No, yeah,
on terms of
regardless of
AJ Brown,
Superbowls.
I see him being traded, and I'm gonna guess it's New England actually. I think he reunites with Mike Vrabel with the
Man.
Patriots, and the Pats probably do need a wide receiver one if they're gonna potentially let go of Stephon Diggs due to his recent controversy.
Yeah.
Um,
And
but
his regression.
as with the 49ers, winning against the world-class defense of the Eagles, what does this mean for more defensive-oriented, offensively challenged teams, similar to like the Broncos or the Texans?
Consistency wins ball games. Even teams that have won the Super Bowl purely based off of their defense have had an offense to show for it. I
Absolutely.
don't know if I feel that same way about the Broncos, to be honest with you. I don't see a team without an offense. I don't see them winning a Super Bowl. I don't. And with Houston, I feel the same way. It's really, really, really frustrating watching this team that is so close and Stroud just absolutely cannot get anything going. The fact that that game was so close last week up until it wasn't, it was a close game for 3 quarters, possibly even 4 quarters. It was still a two-score game. So to me, I don't know. I don't see a Houston team that I hate to say it, they barely got by Pittsburgh. If it weren't for the garbage time, I say garbage time, desperation time efforts by Pittsburgh. Was it 2 scores on defense? Is that what happened? Was it two
Yeah,
scores
they
for
scored a
Houston on
fumble
defense?
six and a pick six that day.
Yes. That's a much closer game. And if you're playing a team that has any bit of offensive identity, you're not winning that football game. You're not,
Yeah,
legitimately.
I can't believe I'm
So,
saying this, but Vance Joseph might be the biggest reason why the Broncos are successful right now. I don't know what is
yeah,
going on with the offense. I think they gotta fire Pete Carmichael if I were Sean
yeah.
Payton because the Broncos offense, I think it's regressed from last year. I think it's
Yeah,
actually gotten worse. Bo
and
Nix
it's
has
slipping
gotten
away.
worse this rookie season, and I just think that, in my opinion, that a good offensive coach, a offensive mastermind like Kyle Shanahan, can defeat any sort of defense. Anything you can bring up to Kyle Shanahan, he's just gonna be like,
Yeah,
you know what? I'm gonna bring in Jake Tongas and Juwan Jennings, and I'm gonna put I'm gonna put 30 or 40 on you, dude. I
literally.
think that the
Yeah,
49ers, they're unstoppable because of Kyle Shanahan, and he better win Coach of the Year. But now they end up playing the Seahawks. Do you worry about Sam Darnold faltering in just his second career playoff game?
I don't. I don't believe in the Sam Darnold not clutch thing. Let's look at his last playoff game. Minnesota against it
The
wasn't
Rams,
Detroit
Rams.
because
It
Detroit
was the
had the one
Rams.
seed. It was the
It was the
Rams. How many
Rams.
times did he get sacked in that game?
Got sacked a lot. I think he got sacked about 7 times.
Six. Yeah, it was seven
Six
times.
times, yeah.
I'm sorry. I know that it's partially a quarterback stat, the sack, but six, whatever, 6, 8. I'm not gonna say the uh, other number. I don't know. I don't really know if I can fully blame that on Sam Darnold. So no, I don't. I think he's one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the league right now, especially on long balls, and he's fantastic. And if you don't think so, then you don't know what you're talking about. So I don't worry about him faltering because you know how many other games he's had that were high stake games that have gone to overtime and 2 point conversions, aka the Rams, where they managed to pull that one out, and now they're the one seed in the NFL, and that was a prime time game. Like that was a playoff game.
Yeah, that was a playoff game. And Sam Darnold, I think that the only issue would be with if Sam Darnold was playing against an elite pass rush and has to take a lot of sacks. The 49ers are one of the worst in the league. So I don't think Sam Darnold has anything to worry about. By the way, that he had 9 sacks against the Rams, which is
Oh my
crazy to think
gosh.
about. He had much more than we all both thought. But Sam Darnold has nothing to worry about. Even with like a couple faulty offensive line with the Seahawks, the Niners pass rush is so injured. And Fred Warner might be coming back. I don't think he's going to be a 100%. So
No.
overall, I'm going to get it right in my score prediction. I think Seattle wins this one. I'm going to say 20 to 13. I think
Oh,
Seattle wins
low
this one.
scoring. I think it's
Yeah.
going to be 31-24 Seattle. And I'm going to be honest with you, Owen. I would have taken San Francisco had I not taken Seattle on my Super Bowl bracket already.
I
I,
put the Broncos in a Super Bowl bracket. It's okay.
that's funny. I legitimately think that San Francisco is going to win this game. I'm going to be so honest with you. But because I
Oh,
took
you're kind of
Seattle in the Super Bowl bracket on the last episode, I feel like I had to stick with Seattle this time. Otherwise, I'd just be like making a fool of myself. So what I actually think the score is going to be is 28-24 San Francisco, but 31-24 for the stat sheet. So,
absolutely. And we can get very quick into the rest of these playoff games because they were not very entertaining. New England won a game that they absolutely should have won against the Chargers. Drake May stalled against LA, but it didn't matter since Justin Herbert had 120 net passing yards, got sacked 6 times, and the pass rush hit him 10 times. The Chargers fired Greg Roman. How much blame does Greg Roman deserve for how badly the offense performed in the playoffs?
he does deserve a lot of blame, but I do think we need to investigate that offensive line. I mean, I understand you've been dealing with some injuries up there, but 6 sacks, that is ridiculous. That is
Yeah.
ridiculous. And Justin Herbert constantly has to deal with this all the time. He always does. So, I don't know. I That sucks, but I don't know if I can fully blame Greg Roman on this. I think he deserves to be fired. If that makes you feel any better.
It doesn't. I'm not a Chargers fan, but that offensive line is so bad. Remember that graphic where the offensive line, the PFF grade was near the last in the
Yes.
league for all of them?
Yes, all of them were last or second last in the league. And they had one guy who wasn't even ranked on PFF because he hadn't been started enough games in the season.
Yeah, they lost Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater for the season. Justin Herbert had to be running for his life against this Patriots pass rush, which is sneakily good.
It
But
is, especially with how good that's the thing. The secondary helps the pass rush a lot because Herbert
yeah,
has to spend a lot more time making reads.
yeah, definitely deducing. But New England, uh, Drake May, I don't think he played as well as he could have been. Dennis is only it's only his first playoff start, but does that concern you a little bit?
It doesn't. I think that he had two turnovers. Both of them were not good, but I still think he had 200 and something odd yards, and he had a the icing throw to
Right.
win the game to his tight end, Hunter Henry, I want to say.
Yeah, Hunter Henry.
I'm not that worried. I still think that throwing 250 yards is substantial, and I know that I'm just looking at the stats, and when you look at the game, he barely scored any points. But I'm not that worried about Drake May. I think that this actually showed to me that the Patriots are capable of winning games without it being high scoring. And when they're
Yeah.
playing Houston next week, a team that can't produce anything on offense, I'm taking Drake May to, even if he throws for 250 yards and two picks, at least he's going to throw two touchdowns versus CJ Stroud is going to throw 46 yards.
And like no touchdowns. Yeah, I
Right.
think you're right. This Patriots team is gritty and they resemble the Mike Vrabel spirit perfectly. I think this
Right.
Patriots team just
Definitely.
finds ways to grind through wins, and that's showed today. They were not at their best. Drake May was not at his best, but it didn't matter. So I think that it's a very big sign for the Patriots. Meanwhile, on the other side, a game happened between the Texans and Steelers. Houston won 30-6. It was more of like a comedy show over there. CJ Stroud turned the ball over 3 times, and he somehow won by 24 because the Steelers let up a fumble six and a pick six in this game. And of course, Mike Tomlin leaves his coaching chops to the Steelers, and Aaron Rodgers might be going away too. Do you think that is going to happen? And if not,
Yeah,
where
he's
do you see him
retiring.
playing? Yeah,
He's
I don't
retiring.
know why.
I don't
Aaron
see a
Rodgers,
guy standing on that field after that game thinking that he wants to play another snap of football, to be honest with you.
yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Dan Marino game where they let up 60 something points against the
Yes,
Jaguars, and Dan Marino
exactly. That
just
was his last game.
decides to hang up the
Yes.
cleats. I think Aaron Rodgers is officially time to go.
Yeah.
That the Steelers offense has nothing for him, and he just did not perform well. I think it's officially time to hang it up. But now the Texans and Patriots play each other in the division round at 3 o'clock p.m. on Sunday, January 18th. What does it take for Drake May to overcome this defense?
Drake May needs to do what Aaron Rodgers does best, ironically, which is getting the ball out of your hands as quick as possible. Do not hold on to that football. But I think that Drake May is, I want to say he's a little bit better at it, but it's not true. I mean, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers over here. It's going to be hard, but Drake May's just he's got to make his quick reads. He's got to get the ball out really quick, and he also cannot leak out in the pocket like he likes to. Drake May tends to leak out when he has a little bit too much time, which fortunately probably won't happen to him. But I think if he leaks out of that pocket, he's going to feel it with that pass rush, and that is a fast pass rush too. Not only are they strong, they're fast, really fast, explosive. So I would say try and stay in the pocket, don't leak out, and just don't hold on to the ball. Do not hold on to the ball. Quick reads, quick reads, quick reads.
Yeah, I agree. I think Drake May needs to. They may need to potentially use some of the screen game here with Demario Douglas potentially getting a good bit of yardage
Yeah.
because this secondary for Texas is for Houston is pretty good too. With Lassiter, Stingley, Petrie. This Texans defense
Yeah.
kind of worries me a little bit. Do you think the
Oh,
Texans
yeah.
have any sort of life on offense?
No, I don't really. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I
Maybe.
don't.
Maybe they'll do better than they did last week, but I don't think that's life.
It's weird how CJ Stroud has regressed so much since his rookie
Yeah, it
season.
is. It's concerning. It legitimately is. I mean, he's
And yet the
near
Texans
like moving on
defense
from.
and yet the Texans defense is still so consistently good that it like carries them to games. It's just
Yeah.
crazy.
Dude, I mean, if you had 15 other quarterbacks in the league, there's a chance you'd be Super Bowl favorite right now
Right.
if you're Houston.
But let's go on to the score prediction. Grant, what do you got?
I got New England still in this one, 24-13.
I'm actually going to go the opposite way. I think Houston actually does win this one. I'm going to have them winning, let's just say, yeah, I'm actually going to have it about 24 to about 17 as well.
You can take 24-13. I don't care. It's it's
Yeah,
flipped teams.
I think it'd be flipped, but Houston just like I don't know if the Patriots have the gall to stop this Houston pass rush. Like I
There.
genuinely don't know. Their interior defensive line is pretty bad, And the Patriots could definitely take advantage of that with a running back who's able to get 4 or 5 yards, like a Derrick Henry kind of running back. But they don't
Right.
have the Travion Henderson is one of the worst
No,
running backs running on the inside, and Ramondre Stevenson fumbles the ball too much for the Pats
he
to trust
does.
him.
He
I don't know
does.
what they have offensively that can compete with this Texans defense. So I think Houston could get if Houston gets like a fumble six or a pick six, I think Houston's winning this game. CJ
Fair.
Stroud literally just needs to not turn the
Turn the
ball over
ball over.
3 times, and Houston is in business. I think Houston does end up winning against New England, and oh my God, it's Bills Texans AFC Championship
Wow.
for me.
That's awesome.
You
A
know how
Thursday night
crazy that
football
would be?
rematch.
You know how crazy that would be if the Bills or Texans ended up making the Super Bowl? Bills have not made a Super Bowl since the 1990s, and Houston has not
Texans have
made
never
it.
made one.
They've never made one. They've never
They've
made
never
one.
made a Super Bowl. They've never made one. It'd be
I
crazy.
that is gonna be nuts. But uh, also, I think my NFC championship prediction is gonna be Rams versus Seahawks. That'd be an exciting game.
Yeah,
For
man.
you, it
Mine
looks
might be
like
Bears Niners. That's
yeah,
crazy. I
you
will say
believe
this,
Bears Niners.
the only reason I think the Niners are going to win is like strictly voodoo magic. I think that Seattle is the better team in every category and they should win. There's part of me in the back of my head that feels like out of nowhere, not even out of nowhere, they've been doing it. This
Yeah.
Niners team is just going to just punch up on the Seattle team. I don't know why. I've
hmm
like my I don't know. I can't like I'm split on that one. But I'm just ready for a good football game. I'm ready for a good football weekend.
Agreed. Agreed. We're getting into that on Saturday and Sunday, but to end the podcast, Grant, what are your winners and what is your winner and your loser?
My winner is any team starting a rebuild or in the midst of a rebuild. It seems like a really good time to be doing that with this coaching carousel in full action. And my loser is any head coach finishing under 500 because, buddy, your ass is grass. With Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh, Kevin Stefanski all in the market, Mike McCarthy entering talks again, possibly Matt LaFleur, I would be counting my checks if I had them because you might not be a coach tomorrow.
Yeah, that's Raheem Morris too can add in that category. No, I'm kidding.
Well, actually gotten some talk. Him and Arthur Smith have head coach interviews, which is crazy to me. I don't know what they say in Arthur Smith specifically. Legitimately is running one of the worst offenses in the league after running one of the worst offenses in the league before.
I don't know. I think the Titans are just meant to torture their fan base. They had
Oh,
Jason
it's the
Garrett.
Cardinals.
Oh, the Cardinals too. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
My winner is going to be the Oregon Ducks for the decision on Dante Moore to come back to them. I think that Dante Moore is going to be a lot better next year, and overall, I think he made the right decision to stay with Oregon because he didn't look ready. He would have been a top 10 pick, but I think that he could easily improve next season with another year in that Oregon Ducks system. The biggest loser is going to be any quarterback hungry teams, most specifically the New York Jets. They're going to have to trade for a veteran. It feels like the Raiders are
Yeah.
like the last team, the last person that got the last chopper out of Nam because
Yeah.
Jets are just in hell now again.
Yeah.
Who knows if they draft for the second pick, but that's going to do it for the Gritz Blitz podcast. Thank you guys for listening to the second episode of it. I'm Owen Hillman alongside my great co-host Grant Hillman. Be sure to follow the Gritz Blitz podcast on any social media service, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, and be sure to follow Owen Strikes Out on X or Tackles and Checks on YouTube. Be sure to give my brother a follow on Instagram, and we'll see you guys on the next one. See ya.
Yes. Rise up.
Rise up.